Ladies and gents, boys and girls, Wednesday, August the 16th, 2023. Good morning to each and every single one of you as we have a morning TDC here on this hump day, getting things started much earlier than normal. And again, guys, as always, appreciate you all rolling with the punches and being able to make adjustments on the fly, right? That is an identifier of someone that is coachable, right? Learns on the go, and you guys are able to make that adjustment, roll with the punches. And again, cannot say thank you all enough for doing so. I see Madison Duncan, Austin Gregory, Chase Floyd, Hunter Kelly, Austin Miller. Brendan M says, "Go Yankees." Chop on, my guy. Aren't the Yankees in dead last in the AL East, by the way? Brendan, I'll let you answer that question. Austin Gregory says, "Coffee and TSUS, what a combo." Indeed, my friend, I've got mine literally sitting right here, just out of sight, on my second cup of Joe, Austin. So, on my second cup of Joe. Again, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. We do have a lot to get into here on this Wednesday. Also, those in the Big Cock Club Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel, to be sure your questions are answered there. And guys, I will tell you this, again, I thank y'all so much for tuning in early on this Wednesday. We were talking about this morning. If there's one time slot that I was going to pursue or the Daily Crow would take over versus noon to 3, it would be this 9 to noon Eastern time slot. Now, I'm not telling you all that's going to happen. I'm not in a position or at a point where I really feel the need to do that or want to do that. I love attacking the lunch break specifically. I think that makes sense for a lot of reasons. But I like waking up and just getting after it. So jumping on with you all guys, again, I thank you all so much and really, really excited for the day. Again, we got a lot to get into, tons to discuss. Things are a little bit different today, obviously, outside of the time change. Hour number 2 is going to be our Q&A power hour. So I'm leaning on you guys early to hit us with questions, hit us with comments, and hit us with calls as well over at 843-790-3377. If you cannot call in during that time, leave us a voicemail right now. We will play that voicemail on the airwaves, and we'll get to your questions, your comments, everything else. But our second hour is going to be that Q&A power hour because our good friend Chris Marler, he will join the show. Chris Marler of Saturday Football Uncensored and Saturday Down South. He'll join the show at 11:30. So towards the tail end of the show is when you will get Chris Marler. So we've got an extended Q&A, by the way, because I imagine our topics in hour number 1 are going to take us to about 10 o'clock. But about 10 to 11:30, we've got you guys. It's on you guys to bring the heat, you guys to bring the conversation. Of course, yours truly, I'll do everything I can, but would love to take some questions from you guys, some thoughts on fall camp, the position unit preview series coming to in. Hey, how about a little bit of week 0 chatter, week 1 chatter? Whatever you guys want to get into, we can do so. So again, Q&A power hour, hour number 2. Chris Marler, hour number 3 at 11:30 specifically. We will go until noon. And of course, guys, in hour number 1, we have got a ton to discuss, a ton to dive into, everything from fall camp to defensive backs as we continue talking the position unit preview series. In case you missed it, guys, that will go today and tomorrow, talking DBs. And then on Friday, we'll wrap this thing up talking kickers and punters. We'll show the specialists some love, wrapping up the position unit preview series. And the next week, we're off. There is no TDC next week, although the podcast will drop every single day, guys. And we've got some fantastic conversations lined up for you in the podcast with folks like Ty Richardson of ESPN Arkansas, Dave Shoemate of Mock 10 Sports, SEC Mike of that SEC podcast, my guy Brett Cianci of Pick 6 Previews, as well as Chris Doring of SEC Network. So some great conversations that are upcoming. Some great conversations that are upcoming. Really looking forward to dropping those next week for you guys. And again, appreciate your love and understanding as we take a week to sort of decompress, to reset, and to get ready for the 2023 football season as we head into game week against the North Carolina Tar Heels. Guys, that being said, we'll go ahead and roll into it. As fall camp rolls on, South Carolina continues their preparations for game one against North Carolina. And I know I've told you guys many times, hey, take it all with a grain of salt. Don't look too far into it. But, you know, 'tis the season. I mean, that's what we do, right? We're sickos. We're diehards. We look at all these post-practice comments. We look at the media availability from offense, defense, Shane Beamer himself, and we read between the lines. I mean, that's just what we do. So without further ado, a couple of different things that stood out to me from the comments of guys like Sidney Fugar, Spencer Rattler, of course, and Tyshawn Wanamaker, offensive players, spoke to the media yesterday following fall camp. And I think some very interesting tidbits and some very interesting quotes that came out of fall camp yesterday. And you start with what Sidney Fugar said, talking about the offensive line and the attitude of the offensive line. He said this, quote, "I have that mentality of my own that no prisoners allowed. No one is touching my quarterback. That's how I've been playing the game. When it comes to pass protection, I take it seriously and make sure my quarterback is clean and I'm protecting him." And we know the offensive line, it's a question mark, right? And guys like Sidney Fugar, they are somewhat of question marks because a guy that comes from Western Illinois, I mean, you look at pictures of Sidney Fugar and guys where he was playing his college football. I mean, Dorman High School has a bigger stadium than what Sidney Fugar was dealing with and what he was playing in at Western Illinois. But you look at the size, of course, it's there. I mean, there's a reason Shane Beamer, Lonnie Teasley, and company brought this guy in. But you hear that. I mean, that's exactly what you want to hear, right? Because a lot of pass protection, a lot of blocking, a lot of tackling, a lot of the fundamentals of football is a want-to thing. A lot of it is an effort thing. A lot of it is a determination, a mental thing. And so hearing Sidney Fugar say that, no prisoners allowed, nobody is touching my quarterback. Of course, let's go see it on the field of play, but you love that attitude that's being carried, and certainly I'm sure that's something that is infectious with the rest of the group. Nick Gargiulo had this to say about Sidney Fugar. He also spoke yesterday, by the way. He said, quote, "I think Sidney's a heck of a pass protector. You guys will see that here pretty soon. When I see him operate at right tackle, I'm pretty impressed with how fluid his kicks are and how quickly he's able to redirect for his size. He's a heck of a teammate, and I've enjoyed playing next to him and him or with him on the offensive line." So it sounds like there's some camaraderie there. Sounds like there's some chemistry. Sidney Fugar looks like he's battling at both of the tackle spots, right tackle and left tackle. Nick Gargiulo fighting for one of the interior offensive line positions, either guard spot and or the center spot. So back to Sidney Fugar, though. Again, left tackle, right tackle. He's looking at both. I thought it was really interesting, too, to hear what he had to say about Nick Gargiulo. And it wasn't just he looks pretty good. He's doing some nice things. He's this, he's that. Guys, when you say something like this, he said, quote, "Nick Gargiulo is the heart and soul of the offensive line." Think about what that is saying. This guy who just got on campus back in the spring, the heart and soul of the offensive line. I mean, that's incredible to have that much of an impact that quickly. He also went on to say, when it comes to the nitty-gritty, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to bringing all of us together, we all count on Nick. He definitely took a big step here and got to be the guy here. I mean, it just screams to, we talked Nick Gargiulo, guys, last week, and his leadership and what he did at Yale and the veteran presence that he brings into South Carolina. And again, it's one thing to hear guys saying, yeah, I mean, he's looking good out there. He's doing some good things. When a player goes on record and says, this guy is our leader, this guy is the heart and soul of our group, that to me, that says a lot. That says to me he's earned the respect of his teammates. He's earned the respect of his coaches. He's earned the respect in that locker room as a whole. And I think that could spell really, really good things for the Gamecocks offensive line, because if they're going to make a splash, if they're going to be better than expected, guys, if that offensive line is going to overachieve, I think a lot of it comes because of the fact that these newcomers, these new guys emerge. These new guys, like a Nick Gargiulo, are leaders and turn into really nice players for you. And it's no disrespect to the guys that are returning, that, you know, like the Tyshawn Wanamakers and the Ja'Kai Moores and the Vershawn Lees that have been here a while. But to a degree, guys, like, you know what you have in those players. I think the success of the offensive line, it more so hinges on guys like Sidney Fugar, like Nick Gargiulo, like Jackson Hughes, like Nee Manziel, that these are guys that at least you have hope that they can be something different from what you've seen over the last couple of years on the offensive line. So you love to hear those comments about Nick Gargiulo from Sidney Fugar. Sidney said this about the scrimmage. He said, quote, I feel like what we really struggled with as an offense was being inconsistent. Overall, we have an explosive offense, very nitty-gritty offense. We're not backing down from no one. We're coming in full head of steam, ready to pound the rock. He said he knows his best ability is pass protection. No prisoners allowed, of course, as we mentioned. And yeah, just continuing, you know, he said this about Lonnie Teasley, which I thought was interesting. Working with Coach Teasley's like working with an NFL coach. He looks at the little nuances I don't even see. Also talked about Coach Atkins. It's all the same with Coach Atkins. Been a coach for a long time. Has a lot of knowledge and IQ. Also said that the offensive line, or the scheme, is offensive line friendly. So we will see how it plays out on the field. Again, I don't want to give too much credence, too much credit to, you know, fall camp reports and quotes, but you definitely like what you're hearing from that group. You like what you're hearing from a newcomer like Sidney Fugar, from a newcomer like Nick Gargiulo, and, you know, Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler also spoke on Nick Gargiulo, right? He also acknowledged what Nick Gargiulo has been doing. As we get these quotes pulled up here, Spencer Rattler on Nick Gargiulo had this to say. Coach Beamer was telling us he was that one captain. I think we knew he was a leader. He's a big guy. He voices his opinion. He works hard. That is all we needed to see to show that he is one of those leaders in that room. He is doing a great job. He continued on and says he's just a big laid-back dude on the field as well. Very relaxed, very calm. Obviously, high IQ, very smart person, smart football player. On the field, he turned into a beast, pancaking dudes, dumping dudes. He's the full package you want for an offensive lineman. He can play multiple positions. He is a great strength up front for us. So, I mean, again, Nick Gargiulo just continues to catch praise and, you know, receive praise from his teammates, his coaches, everyone involved. I think that should spell a successful season for him, no doubt. Continuing on, of course, we just mentioned Spencer Rattler, his comments on the new offense and fall camp. And I think these are things that jumped off the page to you when you look at what Spencer Rattler had to say. Of course, the offense being a major storyline this preseason. Dowell Loggins bringing a new offensive attack. Yes, there's going to be a lot of carryover. Shane Beamer's already mentioned that, but still, there's new terminology. It's a new OC. There's new wrinkles. They're going to do different things, right? We've heard simplifying the playbook, getting the ball in the hands of your playmakers, all those buzzwords, right, that sound really good and make fans feel good about what's happening on the offensive side. But when you hear it from Spencer Rattler, it just hits a little bit different. He said this, he said, quote, "This is the best camp that I've been a part of. Offensively, I love everything we are doing. I don't feel any growing pains myself. The group has been gelling. We've been playing fast. We have a ton of explosive plays and touchdowns this camp, way more than last year for sure. I feel like it is a complete turn. We are going to keep stacking days, keep gelling, and keep creating that chemistry." Again, take it with somewhat of a grain of salt because everybody right now is undefeated. Nobody's lost a game. With that being said, to hear comments like that coming from QB1, if this offensive line can be a little bit better than expected, if Spencer Rattler and company are comfortable and they're able to fly around and make plays and play loose and, be aggressive and be explosive, AKA very similar to what we saw down the stretch at the end of last season, that bodes very well for this offense in 2023. That bodes very well for Dowell Loggins in his first year as OC. Again, we've heard the coach speak. We've heard this before. Does it feel different? Does it feel different now with a new OC going into this year? You'd like to think, again, this crew all learned from the mistakes of last year and being too complex and being overcomplicated and overthinking things. So when you've got your quarterback saying that, and that Spencer Rattler feels comfortable, he feels like there's been no adjustment period, there's no growing pains. A comfortable Spencer Rattler spells trouble for the rest of college football. A comfortable Spencer Rattler, because I'm not saying a comfortable Spencer Rattler isn't going to make mistakes. He is. That's just who Spencer Rattler is. He's a gunslinger. He's a Jay Cutler, Brett Favre type. That's the way he plays, and you have to embrace it. But a comfortable Spencer Rattler is going to make big plays as well. And there's a good chance he's going to make more of those big plays than he is those not so big plays. So based off what we're hearing, if it plays out that way early in this season, throughout the season, I think Spencer Rattler very well could be primed for his best season as a college quarterback. You continue on, guys, what Spencer Rattler had to say. That a name that keeps coming up. He brought this guy up yet again. Omega Blake. He said this, quote, "Omega Blake's been a great weapon for us. Go get the ball, high IQ football player, just has to learn the small details." It sounds like Omega Blake might be a guy who makes a contribution this season. You're talking about the wide receiver group, and of course, it all starts with Juice Wells, and you got Eddie Lewis from Memphis. Amarian Brown is back. Nicholas Harbor's the flashy freshman. Xavier Legette, of course, returning, looking for his breakout season. But Omega Blake's a guy catching a lot of praise and a lot of hype in the preseason. Rattler continued, said, quote, "Still teaching him the ways. Omega had a great scrimmage, hit him for a 75-yard touchdown in the scrimmage." He also mentioned Nicholas Harbor. Says you have Nick Harbor, who is just raw, big, fast. Again, said still teaching him the ways about Nick Harbor. So Nick Harbor still coming along, but Omega Blake, maybe he's a guy, this is in his first year, was on campus last year. Maybe there's some chemistry there. Maybe Omega Blake is able to surprise and make a bigger impact than maybe, we gave credit for a couple weeks ago when we talked the wide receiver position. And then finally, guys, from Spencer Rattler, talking the running back position. And this isn't a surprise for any of us necessarily. This isn't a surprise at all. But hearing Rattler and hearing others continuing to praise Dakereon Joyner. He said this, quote, "The running backs have looked great. DK is obviously our starter, and we're going to roll with him. You guys know how he is. He can make any play on the field. Dakereon Joyner, obviously our starter. Obviously, it's Dakereon Joyner." So that makes me think maybe we're a lot closer to DK being the true RB1 and there not being any sort of running back by committee. Maybe we're closer to that. Now, on-field play is going to define that, right? If for whatever reason Five's not getting the job done, hey, there's other guys in there. They're going to roll in there. They're going to shuffle guys either way, right? If somebody gets the hot hand, there might be a chance they start the next game. I mean, I think that's more than likely how they're going to operate, right? Who gets the hot hand? You know, who do we feel gives us the best chance to win right now? But hearing that, DK is obviously, excuse me, he's obviously the starter. He's obviously our go-to guy right now. I just thought that really jumped out. I thought that was really interesting. Speaking on the running back position. And so it's, you know, that's why I've said many times, guys, that Dakereon Joyner to me is the, if I had to pick one, he's the most fascinating player on this football team. Because a guy that fans have been clamoring he touched the football more, and just, to be frank, has not gotten a lot of touches at this point in his career. Really hasn't. I mean, here and there, very spotty, but nothing significant. Well, now he gets the chance. Like, now you have a chance. You've paid your dues. Here it is. Is he able to hit the ground running against North Carolina? No pun intended. Furman going to the season, getting to SEC play, and really capture that RB1 spot. I thought also, guys, something stood out. DJ Braswell catching some love from QB1. Said this about DJ Braswell. He said, DJ Braswell has looked really good. He continued to say that he's a guy that can make people miss, has that breakaway speed. So I think DJ Braswell certainly at running back, a guy who's going to get opportunities early in this season. I mean, I think even with Dakereon Joyner being the no-brainer number one guy, they're going to see what they have. They're going to absolutely see what they have early on. Also said this about Xavier Legette, quote, just a lot of confidence. He's worked hard this offseason. He improved a lot of his game, and he has been our top playmaker throughout the summer and fall camp so far. Sounds like to me Xavier Legette is solidifying that wide receiver 2 role. Outside of that, guys, that was pretty much it. I know Tyshawn Wanamaker spoke as well. Had good things to say again about the offensive line and the way that they're gelling, you know, ready to go for kickoff. And it sounds like South Carolina preparation is going well. Going very well as you get ready for UNC. Again, is some of it player speak, coach speak, fall camp speak, what have you? No matter. We read between the lines and we keep our fingers crossed that all the positive reports coming out of fall camp, they carry over into week 1 of the 2023 season and beyond. Guys, let's jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Wednesday morning. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Wednesday, August the 16th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Really excited to keep the conversation rolling. Excuse me, here on this Wednesday. Leave us your questions, your comments, your calls. In the meantime, of course, guys, like I mentioned, our Q&A Power Hour is upcoming in hour number 2 because Chris Marler will join us at 11:30 Eastern time. So that entire second hour and even some of the third hour is going to be for you guys. We'll go wrap the show up at noon. Chris Marler will take us into, the end of today's show. Again, guys, thank you all so much. I see the comments rolling in. We've got tons of questions to get into here shortly. Really, really excited as we sit now just 17 days away until toe meets leather on the South Carolina season, and just 10 days away from the start of college football week zero in the college football season. It will begin. Guys, I'm going to present this without any comment, really. Graham Mertz against AP-ranked opponents. Saw this graphic this morning on social media. Florida starting quarterback Graham Mertz against AP-ranked opponents. Total QBR, 38. FBS rank last. Completion percentage, 54%, rank last. Interception percentage, 5%, rank last. Passing TD to interceptions, 5 touchdowns to 12 picks, last. That is what Florida is rocking with at the quarterback position this season. So, there you go. There you go. Guys, the position unit preview series continues as we begin talking Gamecocks defensive backs. We'll break down South Carolina's secondary over the next 2 days. It's a no-fly zone in Columbia over secondary coach Torian Gray, and it looks to be more of the same this season. And, of course, the big departures from this group, Cam Smith and Darius Rush at the starting corner spots. You also lose R.J. Roderick and Devontae Reed at the safety position. You look at what's returning for South Carolina. I'm going to go down this list. D'Angelo Gibbs, Marcellus Dial, B.J. Gibson, Isaiah Norris, David Spalding, King Dominion Ford, O'Donnell Fortune, Landon Greer, Joseph Burns, Kawan Banks, Nick Imanwari, DQ Smith, Jace Blackshear, Emory Floyd, Keenan Nelson Jr., Peyton Williams, Judge Collier, Jalon Kilgore, Zabari Sandy, and Vakari Swain. Those are your defensive backs entering the 2023 season as we begin talking top storylines for the Gamecocks secondary entering this year. I mentioned the losses of Cam Smith and Darius Rush and what that means for South Carolina as Marcellus Dial and O'Donnell Fortune effectively slide into those roles. And I think, guys, anytime, I don't think it's fair to look at this and say, there'll just be, it's a no-brainer, no drop-off. There's not even a point in discussing it. I don't think you're giving enough credit to how good Cam Smith and Darius Rush were for South Carolina. Both NFL draft picks, both a pair of guys who made big play after big play after big play over the last 2 seasons for South Carolina. Excuse me. Especially last year. You look at what those guys did. Again, they were big-time all-SEC caliber corners. Now you look at this season, Marcellus Dial, O'Donnell Fortune, are they ready to slide in and be those big-time impact players? Marcellus Dial, this is a guy who played a lot of football for you. It is certainly not his first rodeo, and I think most folks feel really good about him sliding in that role. You look at his stats last year, had 3 interceptions, finished out the season strong, right? Had a pick in that Clemson game. Looked really good down the stretch. And I think it was a really nice momentum boost for him coming into this season and effectively being your top defensive back, your top corner, if you will. Marcellus Dial is the guy who's going to line up opposite of the opposing team's best wide receiver. That's going to be his role this season. O'Donnell Fortune's the one for me, guys, where it gets really interesting. Because I have 2 memories of O'Donnell Fortune, fairly or unfairly. When you say the name O'Donnell Fortune, these are the first 2 memories that come to my head. One is very positive, and one is negative. I'll start with the negative. I cannot get the image out of my head of O'Donnell Fortune getting mossed by Brock Bowers. And I know Brock Bowers does that to a lot of people, but it doesn't change the fact That's one of those images that's just burned in my head. On the flip side, when I think of O'Donnell Fortune, on the positive side, that 100-yard interception return that he had in that ball game against Notre Dame, in the bowl game specifically. So it's been somewhat of a mixed bag. I think O'Donnell Fortune, it's a real question mark there. Not necessarily is he going to be solid, because I think at this point we're giving the benefit of the doubt to Torian Gray and what he's done with these defensive backs. I mean, he took a guy like Darius Rush and turned him into, from a guy that played wide receiver, switched positions, and became an all-SEC caliber cornerback. But will it be a seamless transition? Will they be able to fill in the shoes of the departed Cam Smith and Darius Rush at the corners? And anytime, guys, you're replacing your top corners, NFL-type guys, it's a storyline. Moving to the back end of the defense, Nick Emanwari, DQ Smith, both were fantastic players for the Gamecocks a season ago. I mentioned the losses of R.J. Roderick and Devontae Reed. I mean, guys, addition by subtraction. South Carolina massively upgraded. And that's no disrespect to those guys, but just call it for what it is. I mean, those guys massively upgraded. R.J. Roderick's now at Liberty, and Devontae Reed came from Central Michigan. So that's the reality, the talent level of those two players. And it was a situation where, those guys, they didn't just hit the portal just because. They hit the portal because they got beat out. Bottom line. I mean, Nick Emanwari, by week 2, you could tell, okay, this dude's different. When you got a true freshman safety going one-on-one with KJ Jefferson, arguably the best quarterback in the SEC, but a physical specimen like he is, and he's winning the one-on-one battle, I think that's when we all looked around and said, okay, this kid's built different. This is not your typical freshman. So what do Nick Emanwari and DQ Smith, what do they do for an encore, right? Both these guys, freshman all-SEC, freshman all-everything. I thought DQ Smith, really showed some ball hawking abilities, had a couple of picks last year. Nick Emanwari, also a ball hawk, but a real physical safety, right? Like your typical, he'll get in the box, he'll stop the run, he'll also play coverage. We've talked about it before, guys, that over the history of South Carolina, maybe the records haven't been great, but there have been fantastic players that have come through this program, and the secondary certainly. I'm not saying that South Carolina's DBU, but they produced some hella good defensive backs over the years. Nick Emanwari, DQ Smith, I think are primed to build off of those freshman seasons. And I think there's a real case you could argue this is the best tandem of safeties in the SEC. Because you've got a mix of, pass coverage, ball hawking ability mixed with hard-nosed, downhill, will meet you in the hole, will meet you in the box, and will punish you. You've got a great combination of those skill sets in what Emanwari and Smith provide in the back end of your defense. Guys, there's a position battle somewhat at the nickel spot. And I don't know if it's really a position battle or it's just a lot of different guys can play this position. And they cross-train all these guys. Heck, DQ Smith was talking about, will I play safety? Will I play nickel? Will I play some corner? You'll have to wait and see. They cross-train all these guys, right? But guys like David Spalding, DQ Smith, Jelon Kilgore, Kawan Banks, Keenan Nelson Jr., others. Who wins that? Who is that fifth defensive back in your starting five? Because I think we feel confident. It's Dial and Fortune at the corners. It's Smith and Emanwari at the safeties. Who's the nickel? I'm projecting right now it's more than likely going to be a David Spalding. A DQ Smith can slide down. We've heard great things about the youngster Jelon Kilgore. I think Kawan Banks is a guy that could slide in and play a lot. Played last year. Keenan Nelson Jr., same thing. Played in that bowl game, got his feet wet a bit. A lot of competitive depth in the secondary. A lot of competitive depth. It's not all proven. There's some unproven pieces. There's some youth. But isn't it interesting how you guys hear me speak on this, right? Isn't it interesting how when you have a coach like Torian Gray and you have a unit that's performed like the way this one has, you just get more benefit of the doubt. You just do. Whether it's intentional or not, you do. So you feel like this competitive depth, it is something that will be a positive for South Carolina, and they'll find that fifth guy and that nickel spot, and they'll have that solidified by season's beginning, if you will. I just mentioned, guys, some of the youngsters. Judge Collier, Jelon Kilgore, Zabari Sandy, Bakari Swain, all looking to make a splash. I'm really intrigued to see which of these guys plays the most. Again, I would expect Jelon Kilgore to see the field immediately with the way folks have spoken about him. They've talked about him. They're really high on him. And admittedly, I will say that, depth is I'm not going to say it's a concern, but you're thinner than you were last year in regards to proven commodities, proven guys that have played. At the corner spot, for example, you are, lacking depth, I think, to a degree. Not in regards to talent, but again, proven bodies. Guys that have seen significant action. So I think you're going to see some youngsters out there this year. I think you're going to see the Judge Colliers of the world, the Jelon Kilgores of the world, the Zabari Sandys, the Bakari Swains. I think you're going to see those guys. I think you're going to see a lot of youngsters get play this season. I really do. Excited to see sort of the stars of tomorrow as they emerge. We've seen South Carolina over the years, under Torian Gray, even before. True freshmen step in and make an impact. Guy like J.C. Horn, Israel McQuamu, even a guy like Cam Smith. We've seen young guys emerge and make big plays for South Carolina. I would expect nothing less this season. Speaking of Torian Gray, guys, I think we need to take a moment. When you talk top storylines to this group, we have to take a moment to acknowledge the job of Torian Gray through 2 seasons and what he's done for South Carolina. I mean, it is nothing short of remarkable. Now, I'm going to get here in just a second in regards to the secondary. And, obviously this defense's Achilles heel has been stopping the run. And so has the secondary statistically benefited somewhat? Maybe you could make the argument again, more on that in just a second. But when you think about what Torian Gray took over and how bad they were, and this was with J.C. Horn, this was with Israel McQuamu, this was with Jamie Robinson, this was with John Dixon way back in 2020. And the job he's done through 2 years is nothing short of remarkable. And I think Gamecock fans, you really have to take a step back, sit down, and realize just how fortunate South Carolina is to have this guy as its defensive backs coach. Because as I mentioned, I mean, you hear me talking about it. You get to a point where you get the benefit of the doubt because of the way you performed. You get the benefit of the doubt because of what you've done through 2 seasons. So it's like, okay, we got question marks here, here, and here, but we know the secondary is going to be fine. Why do we know that? Because Torian Gray's had us there every year. I mean, what reason do we have to doubt? Every school makes an argument for, well, our position coach, this is the best in college football. Our position coach, this. Torian Gray is one of the best defensive backs coaches in college football. I could argue he's the best. There's a reason he was highly sought after when Shane Beamer was hiring him to be the DB's coach. And I did not feel right talking about the DBs and going through this without mentioning Torian Gray and the job that he's done to this point. Now, On the note of statistics and what I was just talking about, and this is not meant to be any sort of shot, by the way, at the defensive backs. But as defensive balance improves, what do I mean by defensive balance? I mean South Carolina gets a little bit better at stopping the run, therefore teams pass more, right? As defensive balance improves, will this unit remain a strength? And I don't see this unit ever falling off drastically, but will the secondary be as highly regarded as they are right now? Because the late, great Brad Lawing once told me, Chris, as a defensive coach, never brag about your pass defense. Because all you're doing is telling teams you can't stop the run. If South Carolina, let's just say their linebackers live up to the hype that Clayton White and others are giving them. Let's say the defensive line takes a step forward. Let's say the run defense takes a major step. And so teams are forced to throw the football more against you. Will South Carolina secondary stand tall to the challenge? That's all I'm saying. Have the numbers been somewhat skewed because of the run defense or lack thereof? I don't think that's fair to say. But for example, I mean, in year one, the Gamecocks were top 10 in the country in pass defense. But that defense wasn't that great. The rushing defense was terrible. I mean, last year, guys, like, I don't want to see the secondary statistically, like, move down. But I told you guys this a couple of days ago. Like, I wouldn't mind it because I would like to see a more balanced defense. I would like to see a defense in which, you know what, I'm okay giving up more passing yards if it means that the rushing defense took a step forward. I'm willing to sacrifice that. I'd rather not sacrifice anything. But it's okay to have a balanced defense. There's nothing wrong with having a balanced defense, right? So I just wonder, as that balance improves, maybe it's not this year, but over the years, will that secondary continue to put up impressive numbers and play at that high level that we are really accustomed to at this point? And finally, guys, my final top storyline for the Gamecocks defensive backs entering this season. Anytime you're replacing your top two corners and you're going up against some of the teams you're facing early in this season, it's a storyline. Standing tall against elite quarterbacks and passing offenses early in 2023. Because even if, or even when, I should say, really, truly, the secondary is a strength and it's fine, we're going to learn a lot very quickly about Dial Island, as some of you like to refer to it. We're going to learn very quickly about O'Donnell Fortune. We're going to learn very quickly about David Spalding. We're going to learn very quickly about Nick Emanwari and DQ Smith and their sophomore campaigns and what they have in store. Because, guys, you're facing some legitimate passing attacks early on. This is not one of those scenarios where you ease into the season and it's, let's just get our feet wet and we'll get settled and get our feet under us, what have you. No. It's Drake May in North Carolina. It's Carson Beck and that array of weapons they've now got on the outside. It's Will Rogers with Mississippi State. No, they're not air raid anymore, but still, Will Rogers, he's going to own every single passing record there is in the SEC. It's Joe Milton and Tennessee and that Josh Heupel offense. We're going to know a lot about South Carolina secondary very early on, especially those corners, Marcellus Dial and O'Donnell Fortune, as they replace Cam Smith and Darius Rush. If South Carolina gets through those first 5 games and that secondary standing tall and, it's not a leaky defense or not giving up a lot of explosive plays, if that secondary is able to withstand that, you've got a damn good secondary, man. You've got absolutely no issues, I think, in that regard. Because I don't know that you'll see much, many passing offenses better than what you'll see in those first couple of weeks of the season. So question marks loom, especially when it comes to your corners on the outside. We will learn a lot about Torian Gray's group early in this season, as they'll be battle tested against some of the best quarterbacks and passing offenses that college football has to offer. Guys, let's jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Wednesday. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Wednesday, August the 16th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Don't forget, Chris Marler upcoming at 11:30. He will take us into the end of the show. The Q&A Power Hour upcoming here shortly as well in the next 15 or 20 minutes. With that being said, we're going to continue on with the conversation, talking Gamecocks defensive backs here on this Wednesday. And let me say again, guys, good morning to you all. Hope you all are enjoying a little bit of a morning TDC. Hope you're having your cup of joe like I am. And appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Really exciting stuff, guys, as Gamecocks fall camp continues. They will practice this morning at 11:10 a.m. Eastern. They will practice at 11:10 a.m. Eastern. So I'm sure more updates to follow out of fall camp today. Anyways, guys, we'll keep the conversation rolling as, again, we're talking Gamecocks defensive backs. We'll conclude that tomorrow, and then on Friday's show, we will talk kickers, punters, we'll talk specialists, right, in the position unit preview series as that wraps up. And, guys, we put a pin in our preseason content, which is exciting to say because what that means is that South Carolina football is truly just around the corner. And let me say this, by the way. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'll say this for myself. I am ready to be hurt again. I am. I am ready to get my hopes up irrationally high, especially on a game day specifically. I am ready to feel the heartache and the heartbreak that comes with being a South Carolina football fan. I'm ready. I'm ready for it, man. I'm embracing it. I'm not running from it. I'm running to it. I embrace it. I'm excited. Let's do the damn thing. Either way, we'll keep the conversation rolling, guys. Which Gamecocks defensive back has the most to prove this season? And as we mentioned previously, anytime you're replacing your top two cornerbacks, it is a talking point. It is a storyline. And that is certainly the case going into this 2023 season. Gone are Cam Smith and Darius Rush, two players who were extremely effective in their times at South Carolina, especially in the Shane Beamer era. And I think we somewhat take it for granted, right? I think having a dominant defensive back, or even just a really good defensive back, a really good corner, I think it's taken for granted because it feels as if, okay, you know, the passing game's taken away. Well, why is it taken away? It's because you have this elite shutdown dude. And not trying to spark debate here, but you could really debate that defensive back, the cornerback position specifically, you could debate it's the most difficult position to play on a football field. I think quarterback obviously be number one, but defensive back is right there. Because you're going up against these elite offensive playmakers, these elite wide receivers, and you're having to adjust to what they're doing and make decisions on the fly and flip your hips and use elite athleticism. It's a very difficult position. That's why they're paid so handsomely in the NFL. That's why elite DBs are few and far between. And so with Cam Smith, DB1 gone, and you think about, too, what he was as a leader. Drop your nuts. He was a leader for this Gamecocks football team. Out with Cam Smith and insert Marcellus Dial. Marcellus Dial has the most to prove amongst this group this season, simply because of the fact he slides in and takes over in that CB1 role. You're the dude now. Dial was very good a season ago. 45 tackles. He had 1 tackle for loss and 3 interceptions as well. But it's a different ball game now. No longer are you the nickel. No longer are you kind of rover out there just hanging out, picking on the quarterback. Marcellus Dial, week after week after week, will now be lining up against the opposing team's best wide receiver. He'll now be taking on the best of the best on a weekly basis. And what a great opportunity, and one that certainly Marcellus Dial is looking forward to. I think there's high confidence in the building, outside of the building, amongst the fan base even, I'd say, that Marcellus Dial is going to flourish, and he's going to be a very solid DB1 for South Carolina. But he will be tested. He will be tested early. When you look at that schedule, Drake May and UNC, Carson Beck and those weapons at Georgia, Will Rogers in Mississippi State, Joe Milton in Tennessee, he will be tested. Absolutely. And these teams that play South Carolina early, you have to think to yourself, they're going to say, okay, they got a pair of brand new corners. As good as they might be, they're still brand new in these specific roles. Let's test them. Let's see how they handle it. Let's see how they fare. Anytime you're replacing a guy like a Cam Smith, who is a legitimate NFL body, it's a talking point. It's a storyline. Now, we've seen this before. We've seen South Carolina do a really nice job of replacing their top corners. Think back to 2021, year 1 of Shane Beamer. Torian Gray comes in, right? J.C. Horn and Israel McQuamu, those guys, J.C. Horn specifically, DB1, they depart. Cam Smith slides in and takes over, and the rest is history. So there's nothing that says that won't happen again, right? But anytime you're replacing a guy like that, it is a major storyline. Also, how's he fare in the run game? Stopping the run game, putting your face in the fan, right? Putting your nose in the dirt. Coming up at the DB spot, coming up at that corner spot. And playing the run effectively also. Not many corners want to do that. Is Marcellus Dial able to play the run? But most importantly, build off what he did last year. Dial was a nice player in 2021, was a good player last year. How much more does he have in the tank? Is he able to elevate his game? Is he able to take his game to another level? Again, showed flashes last year. 3 interceptions. Played really well in that Clemson game. Played really well down the stretch for South Carolina. But he now faces his greatest challenge yet, as it's now Dial Island in Columbia, and Marcellus Dial takes over as South Carolina's CB1. Guys, let's jump into a break. That being said, we're going to dive into your questions. The Q&A Power Hour begins here on this Wednesday morning. All that and more here on the Daily Crow. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Muscle Dougie, Hello Dougie,
For the game next.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Wednesday, August the 16th, 2023. Taking your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377 as the Q&A Power Hour officially gets underway. I want to hear from each and every single one of you. The phone lines are open here on a Wednesday. And let's get to some of these questions that you guys left a little bit earlier. Chase said, thank God Chris isn't in his PJs. I was tempted. Listen, Chase, you're only seeing from here up. You have no idea what's going down under. You have no idea. You got no idea, Chase. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. Jerry Withrow texting in. He says this: what Gamecock has the most to prove? And I think we go 2-1 against Georgia, Clemson, and Tennessee. I also believe best case 10-2, worst case 7-5. Which Gamecock as a whole has the most to prove? That's a great question. Wow. Because we've been talking most to prove with all these different position units. But just on the football team as a whole, which Gamecock has the most to prove? You know, fairly or unfairly, because it's the highest profile position on the football field, I think the most to prove for South Carolina's entire team is Spencer Rattler. I do. After last year where it was such a mixed bag. And you know what? I say it was a mixed bag. It wasn't. He was horrific for 10 weeks, really, really good for 3 weeks. This is a huge year for Spencer Rattler. It is, man. You can say what you want about the scheme and all that, but listen, guys, when you look at last year's offense, guess what? His statistics are his statistics. And the quarterback gets way too much of the credit. He gets way too much of the blame, right? So whether you're in Josh Heupel's system or Marcus Satterfield's system, the quarterback stats are the quarterback stats, and they get credit for it either way. But Spencer Rattler, to me, he's got the most to prove in this entire football team. When you just factor in, again, the way last season ended, how porous he looked at times. Now you've got this new offensive system, this new offensive scheme that, you know, you feel like there's no growing pains and it fits you well. Okay, let's see it. Let's see it. I think Spencer Rattler is the most to prove on this football team this year. Of everyone. Of everyone. Zach Anderson, Chris, who do you have winning the Natty this season? I will drop all that, Zach, next week. We're actually going to drop a graphic with my projected playoff, and as well as I'll give my national champion also. Yeah. Gamecock Superman, my guy Dalton. What do you think about Rattler's comments about Dowell Loggins, the new offense? I mean, you love to hear it. You love to hear it, man. When your quarterback's saying things like there's no growing pains, there's no real adjustment period. Like we're making big plays, way more explosives than last year. That's a great sign, Dalton. That is a great sign. Austin Gregory said this: hearing Nick Gargiulo speak was music to my ears. You can spot a leader like him from a mile away. One thing our offensive line won't be lacking is a true leader. Austin, I agree with you 110%, man. Agree with you 110%. Rowdy Rooster, does Nick have another year? I'm not 110% sure. I think he's a grad transfer. I think he's a one and done. I'm pretty positive. Okay, let's get to this comment. Brian Alexander says, if he, referring to Dakereon Joyner, is RB1, that is depressing. He also went on to say, just like the day he made the comment about people that just play the position or born to play, that is not DK. Wow, okay. So not everybody's a fan of Dakereon Joyner playing running back. Interesting. Interesting. Gamecock Superman says, did you also see Spencer said the new scheme is very easy for him to understand and play, and that they're getting a lot more explosive plays in camp they did last year? I don't think you meant expensive, obviously. Spur Daddy says, I did see that, Gamecock Superman. Love to see it. Spur Daddy says, I think all of us are going to be pleasantly surprised with the running backs this season. Rowdy Rooster, Wanamaker said about the running backs, oh, they coming. 864 Shy says that B. Alexander is a hater. B. Alexander says he's a realist. Spur Daddy says, hey, Chris, they can't have snubbed the Rooster, but he won't ever die. I hear you. You got that song stuck in my head now. Jeff Gullidge, what is everyone meals plans for the game against UNC if you're not able to go to the game? Do you keep it simple or go all out? Jeff Gullidge asking about meals for the ball game. I'll tell you this, Jeff, because I will grill out on game one, opening day. Wings will definitely be involved. There will be wings throughout the day. I don't know, though. Burgers and hot dogs sound really, really good. Steak sounds good. Brats sound good. I don't know. We'll make that decision when we get closer. Let's see. Continuing through your questions, your comments, everything else. 864 Shy says, B. Alexander's the slapdick of the day. Love that. Ricky Leather says, where did you get that shirt? Believe it or not, my friend, eBay. Just saw this one day, found this. It's got Gamecocks at the bottom. Really sick shirt, man. The old vintage shirt on eBay. Yeah, this shirt's fire. Literally, it's fire. Literally, on fire. Let's see. Rowdy Rooster, dial it up. He about to have 3 interceptions for sure in one game. I hope you're right. Brian Alexander went on to say this. Basically, I feel like putting DK as a running back is the same as playing that coach as a quarterback. We had no other options. That coach did decent. He was not Spencer. I mean, Brian, you might be right. Hey, listen. Your opinion's fair. Your opinion is your opinion. I'm not going to say it's wrong. It's your opinion. To the Big Cock Club Discord we go. Rowdy Rooster 75 says, do you see us losing any coaches after this year? Or have you heard any talks of that possibility happening? I mean, Rowdy Rooster 75, I would say this. Anytime you have a coaching staff with high-level coaches, elite-level coaches, there's a chance you lose a couple. I mean, look at Alabama, right? During Nick Saban's tenure, they've replaced OC, DC practically every single year. It's not because, like, their culture's bad or anything like that, but, you know, when you've got elite-level coaches on your staff, they're going to get poached. It just is. It's a compliment. I mean, you want a staff full of coaches that other people want. That means you have good coaches, right? So I can't say whether or not they're going to lose anybody or what's going to happen. We have no idea. I mean, that's purely speculation. Todd Smith says Spencer Rattler throws for 3,750 yards, 20 touchdowns, 5 picks, and rushes for 3 touchdowns. I'd take that. Brian Alexander, I think he threw 6 touchdowns in a single game last year. He could throw 30 to 40 touchdowns. Yeah, he threw 6 against Tennessee. Roman Padgett, is O'Donnell a DB or does he dare play safety? He's a DB. He's playing corner. Spur Daddy says, Mr. Dial is from my old hometown of Woodruff, South Kakalaki. I think he's going to be a stud this year. I'm excited for him. Listen, I'm excited for him. Brian Alexander, I feel very optimistic about this season. I do as well, Brian. I do as well. I just think people think I'm pessimistic about the season because they look at like a C grade for a couple of different units and say, oh, my God, he must think we're going to win 2 or 3 games. But what people aren't factoring in is like a true A through F scale. Like, you see what I'm saying? See, that's the funny thing. It's like, I give a grade. I know how I feel about the football team. I know what a C grade says. But the way you consume it and the way you interpret it is different. That's what's kind of funny about it, is that people see something, they hear something, they look at something, and they draw their own conclusions. I'm very optimistic about South Carolina football this year. I'm very optimistic about South Carolina football under the leadership of Shane Beamer. And I don't think a C if you told me that this team is graded out at a C grade, well, they're not terrible. They're not great, but they're not terrible. They're a team capable of anywhere between 6-6 and 8-4. It's just, are they going to be a C- or a C+? I think that's where South Carolina is, man. That's not a bad football team. See, the problem is we've gotten into this era of, well, if your team doesn't make the playoff, they suck. You win 8-4, you suck. It's like, I just don't view it that way, man. I still think 8-4 is a really good season. I think winning 8 or 9 games is a fantastic season. You're a pretty damn good football team if you do that. I don't buy the whole thing of your poverty program. You didn't win double-digit games, poverty program. I just, That's silly, bro. I don't buy that. I just don't buy that. Spur Daddy says, my predicted score, Real Carolina 42, Heels 28. I like that. Jeff Gullidge says, bowl game for the sim game should be FSU or Utah or Penn State or Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma would be a lot of fun, Jeff. I think it would. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Hunter Kelly, how do you think the Tennessee defense will do this year? How about a Tennessee question? I think Tennessee's going to be improved defensively. I think one of the reasons is that their secondary was so bad last year. It's only up from there. I think that they've improved the talent on the defensive side. We'll have to see how much of a step they take forward in the secondary. I think they'll be slightly better, though. I know talking to Tennessee people, they feel really good about what they've got. They feel like they've improved the talent exponentially on the defensive side. So we'll see. But I if I had to guess, Hunter, I think Tennessee will be improved defensively. I do. How much better, we'll see, but I think they'll be improved. Madison Duncan, yeah, I saw your comment, Madison, in the Big Cock Club Discord. Any truth to LSU team having AC helmets? Yes, they do. Because I've actually been in contact with the guy that is one of the sellers or buyers or whatever. He works with them. So multiple teams have those, the air-conditioned helmets. Yes, that's a real thing. Yep. That is a real thing. John Rice, little morning crow. Yes, sir, John. We're hitting the road this afternoon to Atlanta. Going to watch Braves Yankees tonight at Truist. Going to be a good time. So figured, hey, we got content to get into. We got things to discuss. Let's knock it out in the morning. We also, guys, don't forget, have Chris Marler of Saturday Down South and Saturday Football Uncensored joining the podcast, or joining the show, at 11:30. We'll talk all things Gamecocks, SEC, and everything in between. Seth said, do you think Tennessee and Joe Milton are currently overrated? At number 12, I think Tennessee's a top 15 team. So I'll say no. I think they're a top 15 team. I do. If anything, they're a little overrated, I'll say. I mean, you could convince me they're 17 or 18 in the preseason poll, and I'm fine with that. You know, I thought it was interesting, SEC Mike and Cousin Shame, that SEC podcast, they did point out Tennessee is the only team to win 11 or more games last year and not be in the top 10. So, but granted, you lose so much. Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, like, bro, they lose a lot. I mean, they lose a lot. So is it fair to say that Joe Milton's just going to slide right in and be as good as Hendon Hooker was? I mean, I don't think there's – I'll say this. Tennessee's offense is going to be good this year. I don't think there's any way it's as good as last year's. That doesn't mean it's not going to be good. But last year was historic. I mean, what Hendon Hooker did, you could argue he had the best season ever amongst any Tennessee quarterback, even Peyton Manning. Hendon Hooker's season was special. Jalen Hyatt was special. Like, when you have a guy that has 5 touchdown catches against Alabama, that's not normal. Those things aren't normal. So is it fair to say that Joe Milton and Squirrel White and, you know, these other guys, that Brew McCoy, they just slide in and they don't miss a beat? I mean, they're going to be good offensively. But as good as they were last year, that's I think that's bold. I think for Tennessee to get the 9 wins, or God forbid double digit, I think more than anything the defense has to take a step forward, because the offense, it's almost impossible they won't take somewhat of a step back this season. Let's see. Jeff Gullidge. I think when it comes to the grades, most people that don't like your grades are grading in comparison of USC history, not like you were grading them comparing them to the SEC. Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing, Jeff. I compare the folks. See, and that's the thing. That's the thing. You can spot it from a mile away. I get it, man. When you've got the garnet and black glasses on and, like, take whatever the action, and this, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I see some people like in our Big Cock Club Discord, folks like Dalton, Brendan M., right? They get on me for the grades. And it's like, whatever the overly optimistic Garnet glasses, like whatever the actual grade should be, they bump it up one grade. That's how the Garnet glasses crowd operates. Whatever dude, even like I've seen people on social media predict records. I'm like, how about that record prediction? He's like, one of those wins that I predicted, I expected to be a loss, but I picked it as a W anyways. It's like you're allowing your fandom to cloud an actual realistic pick. I'm not going at anybody. I'm just saying that I'm completely removing bias, completely removing fandom. So, like, when I give a grade, it's the real grade. Either way, whatever. Listen, it's all banter. It's all fun. It's all debatable. That's what's cool about it. So it's all good. Nobody's really right or wrong or anything like that. It's just Seth said South Carolina fans are the worst at having the highest expectations. Well said. I mean, Seth, it's a tale as old as time. And that's, again, why I'm saying, like, there's some guys out there. I mean, I've seen some folks pick 10-2 on social media, right? I've seen folks pick 10-2 on social media. And, cool. If you think that's going to happen and you got football reasons as to why, fine. But there are some people in the fan base, and every fan base, by the way, has this. It's the 80-10-10 rule, right? 80% of your fan base is kind of just the level-headed, normal, we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic, but we have questions. Like, see both sides, recognize both sides. Then you have 10% that is your doom and gloom, and you have 10% that is your fanatical, over-the-top, we're going undefeated every season. So, like, the high expectations, like, there are people every year that come into every season thinking Carolina's going to win 10 or 11 games. Every year. And they're like, you know what? One day I'll be right. Or hopefully, one day I'll be right. I'm not saying you're wrong for that, but man, does that lead to a lot of heartache. Does that lead to a lot of heartache? Spur Daddy says, I don't think an ACC team should be ranked in the top 10, maybe top 15, but FSU or Clemson are not top 10 teams. You don't think Florida State's a top 10 team? I mean, this is a team that people are putting in their college football playoff. Not a top 10 team? Spur Daddy, our friend Brett Ciancia of Pick Six Previews, he's got a Florida State in his playoff, man. Not a top 10 team? I mean, if you don't think they are, that's fine. That's a take. That is a take. That is a take. I'm sure he's tuned in right now, bro. Panic Ritter is hilarious. We post the graphic of Graham Mertz and like how abysmal he's been against ranked opponents. And of course, what is Panic Ritter's response? He could have a monster game against us. The doom and gloom crowd led by Panic Ritter. Guys, let's jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll continue the conversation, taking your questions, your comments, your calls, and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, we're back here on this Wednesday, August the 16th, 2023, as we continue on to take your questions, your comments, your calls as well. 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Would love to hear from you all. Change of plans, guys. Chris Marler will join us at 11:15 instead of 11:30. So he's had some things shuffled around. He will join us at the 11:15 slots. You got about 45 minutes left to get your questions, your comments, everything else in here on this Wednesday, August the 16th. And again, guys, let me say thank you all so much, truly, for rolling with the punches, for being flexible. We got a great crowd tuned in this morning. I cannot say thank you all enough. I'm sure there's some of you out there tuned in before you go head over to Inside the Gamecocks with JC Sherbert, JB, and Phil as well. And, of course, we'll chat with those guys tomorrow morning at 11:30. Really excited to appear on their airwaves during the show and chat with them and hang out and conversate. And it's going to be a good time, man. It's going to be a really, really good time. Excited for it. Excited to have JC on, obviously. And we are set, guys. We are set with our weekly guests for TDC. We are set with our weekly guests for TDC. In case you missed it, this is what we will rock with in the 2023 season. On Mondays, we have Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. On Tuesdays, we have JC Sherbert of the Big Spur. On Wednesdays, we have Chris Marler of Saturday Down South and Saturday Football Uncensored. On Thursdays, we have Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate. And on Fridays, of course, we have Jake Crane of Crane and Company. I feel like a star-studded lineup, our best lineup yet. And let me go ahead and get out there and say no Alex McGrath this football season, which is unfortunate because those of you who have been tuning in for a while, you are very familiar with Alex McGrath. And Alex is a guy that, he was the first ever, I would say, weekly guest that I ever had on my show. The first ever weekly guest. And he's appeared on the show every football season since about mid-2019. So, to not have Alex McGrath on it's a tough decision, but it's one that, he's got a lot of things going on. And, as the show and the brand and everything continues to grow, you got to make some tough decisions. And, I like the position that we're in, going with guys, like a JC Sherbert who covers the Gamecocks full time, like a Mark Ryan who talks sports full time, like a Mark Rogers, right, who covers college football nationally, like a Jake Crane, same thing, Chris Marler, same thing. So I like where we're at from a guest standpoint. I really do. Let's jump back to the phone lines here.
Call from
Frank.
Football Frank, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Hey, buddy, how are you today?
Dude, I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you asking. Just hanging out. What's up?
Very good. I got three quick ones for you. First of all, on the season record today, this year, 8-4 is an overachievement considering the schedule we play. I mean, we're playing 5 top 10 teams. I think we're one of 10 teams to do that. So I think an overachieving record this year would be 8-4. Second thing is going to be that Lenora Sellers start. I'm going to stand on this. I'm going to say that Jacksonville State, Doty starts. Doty goes in the game as soon as we're up by 17. And as long as he can produce scoring drives, he's going to stay in. And then Sellers is going to start our bowl game. So those are the two things. I had a third one I can't for the life of me remember, but trust me, it was very important.
Frank, I love it, man. I love that. I think Sellers starts a game also. It would not shock me. It's a bit of a bold take, but, you get to that point. I think specifically the bowl game is what I look at, where I think Rattler most likely opts out. He will get ready for the NFL draft. And, dude, at that point, I think you start preparing for next season, preparing for the future, and you let Lenora Sellers kind of take the reins and just kind of let him see what he can do, in a bowl game. So, I love it, man. Kickoff's just around the corner. And I think to your point, I will say this. 8-4, you can label it overachieving. You can, whatever you want to label it. I would say if South Carolina goes 8-4 this season, it will be Shane Beamer's best coaching job yet. When you factor in the question marks and the uncertainties and the schedule, this team can go 8-4. But if they do, you really got to start looking at Shane Beamer as a top 5 coach in the SEC. Like he's that good at taking what he has and getting the most out of it. He's that good at elevating whoever he's coaching, whatever players he's coaching, whatever situation he's in, and going above and beyond. He should be considered one of the top tier coaches in the SEC if he takes this team to 8 or more wins in the 2023 season.
100% agreed. Yeah, that's the other thing with these Garnet and these Garnet Glasses guys. I mean, I'm going to pick 2 wins. I mean, we had tremendous offensive performance against Tennessee, but I'm going to pick the Texas A&M game and the Clemson game. Those games were not won by offensive production. I mean, our offense in both games was anemic. You just look at the plays that stalled out. We recovered fumbles. We couldn't produce any points. Those games were won on defense and special teams. So let's not go out there and think, we're falsely representing ourselves as an offensive gauntlet, because we beat those teams. That was not offensive production. So, I'm hoping to get a good result against North Carolina, but let's call it what it is. We're hoping for a good offense, but in my eyes, we had one stellar offensive productive game last year. Let alone let's start looking back at the 3, Missouri, Arkansas, Florida. I mean, really, we're an offensive gauntlet. Take the glasses off. Let's deal with reality, and let's hope for an overachieving 8-4 season.
Frank, I love it, man. Well said as always. You always bring the heat, and I appreciate that.
All right, pal. Have a great day.
Frank, take care, man. Appreciate it. What do y'all think about Frank's comments there? Clemson wasn't an offensive juggernaut type of game, guided by special teams. I mean, I don't think it's totally unfair. I mean, but I think the offense was solid. I mean, it wasn't great. It was better than it had been, though, in regards to explosive plays more than anything. Rowdy Rooster 75 in the Big Cock Club Discord says this: what does a day in the life of Chris Phillips look like? What's your morning and throughout the day routine? I mean, on a normal day, noon to 3 p.m. Eastern, Daily Crow. Yeah, I mean, we've got a morning routine, that consists of getting ready in the morning coffee, getting behind the Mac and creating content, cutting up video, creating graphics, planning the day, planning the show, planning TDC. I've got a dry erase calendar in the studio. So if we've got interviews, if we got whatever we got going on that day, right? We got a guest appearance. The day could also consist of reaching out to potential business partners or continuing conversation with business partners I already have and wearing the hat of building the business, also talking to my merchandise people and promoting merch and checking in on merch, stuff like that. I really do wear all the hats. I mean, obviously wear all the hats. Also real life things, taking care of the dogs, hanging out with the girlfriend, spending quality time there. Rock the show. Typically in the mornings now, we've been building a little home gym in the garage. So I'm getting my workouts in the morning. Kettlebell workouts. Love it. Love the stuff. Been getting those in the morning. Afternoons, again, sort of depends on what's going on, what the day holds. Every day can be slightly different, but there's a lot of similarities with each as well. Eat some grub, chop up the podcast, edit the podcast, get the podcast out. So again, hang out with the girlfriend, get dinner, make dinner, whatever. And depending on the day, the event, whatever, we go with whatever is that. So there are some solid things in that daily routine that take place every day, and the rest of it you kind of go with the flow and whatever comes up and attack each thing that comes your way. So anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Austin Gregory, you're going to post a Twitter poll for the bowl sim. Yes, I just have not done that yet. I'll get that out later today. I'm feeling pretty good, though, Austin, about Oklahoma. I think that'd be a cool one. I really do. I think Oklahoma would be fun. The Rattler versus OU storyline, I mean, come on. I think that would be a neat a neat game. Very neat game. So, and Rowdy Rooster 75, let me say this on my daily routine. I gave you a very, very high level overview of the daily routine. You know, I didn't want to go too much into detail and bore you with those details, but now we stay getting after it, man. I'm I'm grateful to do something that it's the first thing I think about when I wake up. It's the last thing I think about when I go to sleep. I love the grind. I stay in the grind 24/7, 365. You know, we've this thing, like I'm a very go with the flow person, but also like when you produce the amount of content that we create and you're running the business side and you're doing the merchandise side and you're doing appearances, it's very coordinated and structured, and there's a schedule and there's a content schedule and there's a way things operate. So it's a well-oiled machine, my friend, for sure. It is. It's a well-oiled machine for sure. But I also, with that being said, you know, I try to keep things flexible. And because really, like, excuse me, anybody out there that's an entrepreneur, you can attest to this. I mean, what you're really chasing when you're chasing entrepreneurship, I mean, I love talking Gamecocks. I love talking sports. I love doing what I do. But if you really boil it down to it, what you're chasing when you're chasing entrepreneurship, it's not even money that you're chasing. It's freedom. I mean, that's what you're chasing. You're chasing freedom. Now, with the money, that's what gives you freedom, right? When you have financial freedom and you're able to just operate and move how you want to and do what you want to and, make moves in that matter. But like, it's just truly freedom. Like being able to wake up and not having to punch a clock, not having to answer to a boss, not having to deal with the nonsense that, the corporate world and going to, going to the cube and dealing with that BS. So that's why I try to keep things flexible. I mean, there has to be structure in place. There has to be structure in place, like with the live show, for example. Like we couldn't just say, well, we'll just go live whenever, because I am someone I have a daily routine, stick to the daily routine, love my daily routine, but I also try to be as flexible as possible. And that's why I really enjoy, I love the studio now. Like I really, truly, guys, like I'm in love with the studio. I love the studio space. It's absolutely incredible. I really do. But I also love getting out of the studio. Like when we went to Hilton Head for that week and we were airing the show from Hilton Head and we go to Beach Mountain and we go to different places, right? We go out of town. We go to wherever it is we travel to, and we're still able to rock and produce content. And like, I love doing that as well, because I feel like I'm taking advantage of the freedom that I've worked so hard to gain. I'm taking advantage of that and I'm maximizing that. And I feel like it would be a disservice to myself if I did not do that. You know what I mean? So Rowdy Rooster 75 says, have you ever been starstruck by a Gamecock football player or anyone that you have met? I don't think I've been starstruck by a Gamecock football player. No. And I'm just not really a starstruck guy. I'm just not. It's, I've always looked at it, man, as like whoever it is, Shane Beamer, whether it's a Gamecock great. I've just always looked at it as like they're people just like you and I. You know what I mean? Like they're people just like you and I. I mean, that's why Rowdy Rooster 75 and others, I've always been able to do these interviews since the jump. I've just always felt like, I don't know, man, like it's, especially having former players on, it's like they were an athlete just like I was. Like maybe a different level, maybe, they did it at a different level. They have more accolades, but like I was a college athlete too. You know what I mean? Like I don't view it as like, oh, you're this untouchable figure. You know what I mean? I think though that there's two people off the top of my head that I think if I met in person, I would be somewhat starstruck, or I would be starstruck. Number one, Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan is like not human. You know what I mean? Like he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. Number two, I think I'd go Chipper Jones. I think meeting Chipper Jones would be like a starstruck, like, holy crap. That's Chipper Jones. Like, that's him. That's the guy. So, but with Gamecock football players, I mean, if I met Steve Spurrier, that would be insane. That'd be really cool. But starstruck, no. What's your favorite sports memorabilia that you have? This is a great question because we got a lot of cool stuff in the studio. I don't know, man. If I had to pick one, I mean, the signed Beamer Ball hat, I don't know if people realize because you can't see it, obviously, in the video. This hat isn't just in a box. It's not just a hat. This hat is signed by Shane Beamer. That's why it's in that box. This Beamer Ball hat is signed by Shane Beamer. It's not just some random Beamer Ball hat. So that one's cool. And then really, truly, guys, the Tennessee victory print that we made last year with the piece of the shrub from Willie B from the Tennessee game, that's a really, really cool piece of memorabilia. Like that's a really cool one, man. That's a really, really cool one. So there are others in here also. I mean, there are definitely others in here that I highly, highly value. And I'm grateful to have. But those two would stand. I'm not, John, I'm not picking up the hat and like it's a mess to put the box back up there. So, but yes, the hat is signed by Shane Beamer. Yes, right on top of the bill, he signed it. So, anyways, getting back into your questions. Madison Duncan, Frank, you're comparing last year's performance to a new season. It's a wait and see every year. Predictions are just fun banter and content. Oh, John, send you a pic of the Tennessee thing. I got you. Yeah. Yeah, it's literally right here. It's just out of frame. It's just out of frame because obviously we only have so much room. It's a really, really cool piece, though. Really cool piece. So, really neat. Let's see. Anyways, guys, 843-790-337. 7 Justin Langford said, what's up, guys? Happy hump day. My 3-week-old son is already crowing. LOL. Love that. Austin Gregory, your boldest take was Sellers will start a game at quarterback. If you had to guess, what game does he start? The bowl game. That's the low-hanging fruit, Austin. The bowl game. Yeah. It's almost kind of a trick prediction, right? KFC, can we say that Auburn will be nasty in a couple seasons again? I think so. I mean, Hugh Freeze has won. He's won everywhere he's been. Why wouldn't he win at Auburn? You know, why wouldn't he win at Auburn? So, let's see. Nick Schemator. Nick, do you have the stats from the season simulation series? Do you have the stats? People want to know, Nick, what were the final stats for Rattler in the season simulation series? Nick was keeping up with those stats. Touchdowns, INTs, yards. Do you have those, Nick? Is there any way you can go do the math real quick? Brad Perkle. Still have dirt grass on the Tiger paw from the Tannehill days I was a kid. It was like the whole paw got erased. You still have that, Brad. That's impressive. That is really impressive. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll take more of your questions, comments, calls, and we'll get Chris Marler in here of Saturday Football Uncensored and Saturday Down South. All that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
Hi, guys, are back here on this Wednesday, August the 16th, 2023. Let me say thank you all. Cheers. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Wednesday morning. I've really enjoyed this, honestly. I actually like the 9 to noon slot a lot. I'm not typically a morning person. I've become more of one over the years, but I've enjoyed this. I actually really have. Like, I'm someone, I'll tell you this, guys. I'm someone, when I have a task to do, I like to go ahead and get it going. You know what I mean? Like, I would never do a late show. Like, I don't like the thought of like a 6 to 9 p.m. late show, because then it's like all day you're just like, I've got this thing to do. I've got this thing to do. Like, I like being able to do it and get it done, and it's done. And, like, not that you're, like, trying to get it over with, but I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, the anticipation of something so late that I have to do. I like to go ahead and get after it. So, our guy Nick has the statistics for Spencer Rattler. Here we go. Spencer Rattler, 25 touchdowns, 29 interceptions, 3,873 yards. After the Missouri game, going on a 5-game winning streak, he had 14 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Don't forget, Rattler had 7 picks in one game against Missouri. You take that Mizzou game away, he was 25 to 22 touchdowns to picks. Wild. Those stats are crazy. Wow, here's a report coming out of Southern Cal fall camp. Get this, guys. Cox by 1 just posted this in our Discord. The latest out of Southern Cal fall camp. Running back Marshawn Lloyd opened a recent practice running with the first team and fumbled the first snap. He's been running with the first group some during preseason camp, but he split a lot of time with Austin Jones. And the battle is thought by 24/7 Sports reporter Chris Trevino to be up for grabs at this stage. Jones played 3 games at Stanford and last season at Southern Cal and had 705 yards rushing with 5 touchdowns and 4 starts last season for the Trojans. So, interesting. Marshawn Lloyd having trouble holding on to the football, I suppose. Let's see. Anyway, let's see. Justin Langford still has that NIL and core injury, LOL. Rowdy Rooster 75 says, morning Joe with the Daily Crow. Let's make it happen. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Jerry Woodrow.
Jerry, what's going on, man? How are you?
What's up, Chris?
What's
you
up?
Been doing good, bro?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good.
What's going on?
Not much, man. I've been keeping up with the simulation series. It kind of surprised me going on that 5-game winning streak.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it did, but I was also like, you know what? This feels very, very on brand for what South Carolina does. It really does. Feels very on brand.
7 interceptions versus Mizzou. That's crazy.
That was a tough one. I don't know if Spencer Rattler would if they'd leave him in the game quite that long to hit that 7 interception mark, but you know, I wasn't about to take him out, so it is what it is. But no, yeah, listen, I mean, even with those stats and the way that season went in the simulation, I'd take 8-4, 5-3. I'd take 8-4 with a win over Clemson in a heartbeat. I'd take that in a heartbeat, man. Be honest with you.
Yes, sir. And about Sellers, do you think he'll be at the next Connor Shaw?
Do I think that Lenoris Sellers will be the next Connor Shaw? That's a lot of pressure to put on a young guy. I mean, Connor Shaw is the greatest quarterback in school history. The question you should more so, I think, be asking is, will Lenoris Sellers play on teams as good as Connor Shaw played on? I mean, I love Connor Shaw. Connor Shaw is the man. He's a legend. He's a legend. All-time favorite Gamecock for me. But he benefited playing on some of the best teams in school history. Like those offensive lines, those weapons, those defenses were insane. Taking nothing away from Connor, but you can't do it all by yourself. So if South Carolina is able to put the pieces around him, then sky's the limit. But he needs those big offensive linemen to pan out. You need guys like Nick Harbor and to add more weapons and, to get a Daniel Hill at running back and him pan out and defensively to continue to get better. So, there's a lot of things that go into being the greatest player in school history at your respective position, but especially at quarterback. But you never know. I mean, if Lenoris Sellers, let me ask you this, if Lenoris Sellers leads South Carolina to a college football playoff appearance, is he the best quarterback in school history? I mean, I think you could argue it. Now you got to look at what Connor Shaw did.
It depends on what the stats.
Right, you got to look at what Connor Shaw did. I mean, Connor Shaw was, led South Carolina to 3 straight 11-win seasons after he took over in 2011. So I mean, it's going to be hard to top that. Also won 18 in a row at home, went undefeated at home. So, it's going to be hard to top that, but hey, it can be done. It can be done. We'll see.
I probably didn't mean to say it that way, but I meant to say like the potential of Connor Shaw.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, I definitely get what you're saying. But yeah, I'm excited for Lenoris Sellers. I just, one step at a time. We've done this. We've done this before where we put a lot of big time expectations on a young guy, and it's just a lot, man. It's just a lot. So I'm I want to see. Let's just let it play out, see what happens. But certainly the talent is there.
You was talking about Tennessee earlier, and I scrolled through Facebook or one of the social medias, and I noticed that it's reported that Joe Milton has a 93-yard pass touchdown this spring.
Has a 93-yard touchdown pass. Well, here's the thing, my man. How many 93?
No, like it went 93 yards in the air.
Yeah, I get that. I know what you're saying. That's what I was about to say, though. How many 93-yard passes is he going to be throwing? I mean, that arm strength is great. That arm strength that Joe Milton has is awesome. But I'd take accuracy over arm strength any day of the week. If you can't put it where you want it to go anyways, if you can't put touch on it, if you can't throw the change up, I mean, it's like a pitcher, man. If you got one pitch and listen, if you throw 100, that's awesome. But if you have no off-speed pitch, you're not going to make it very far. So Tennessee just better hope that Joe Milton has a changeup, has a curveball, because if all he's got's that fastball, it ain't going to pan out. It's not going to work out. I mean, again, you're not throwing 90-yard passes in a game. Like, very rarely are you throwing a pass farther than 30 yards, I would say. So that's the biggest question for Joe Milton is the accuracy.
And going back to Carolina for a second, do you think Spencer Rattler, with what he said in the press conference yesterday, do you think he'll be more consistent this year?
I think so. Yeah, I think Rattler's going to be more consistent. I think Rattler just being more comfortable will lead to more consistency. Now, what does that look like? We'll see. But yeah, I think that Spencer Rattler's going to have his moments where he frustrates Gamecock Nation. Let's just go ahead and get that out there, okay? Let's go ahead and accept that. There are going to be moments that you are frustrated with Spencer Rattler and you want to bench him and you want to cuss him out. That's totally fine. But I think there's going to be more positive moments. That's the thing. Like, those first 10 games, man, there weren't a whole lot of positive moments. I mean, he went weeks without throwing a touchdown pass. Weeks, which is insane to think about with his talent. So I've said it many times. I think the Clemson game last year is a great representation of sort of what Rattler is and what he'll be. I think there will be more consistency in regards to the positive moments. I think some of those frustrating moments are still going to be there because that's the nature of Spencer Rattler. You got to live and die with who he is. You got to, take the bad so you can get all of the good. But at the end of the day, in a system that should be simplified, that he's comfortable in under Dowell Loggins, I think you'll see more of the good moments. And I've mentioned this before, but for Spencer Rattler, it's all about raising the floor, my friend. The ceiling is the highest of nearly any quarterback in college football. It's that floor that he's got to raise. It's that floor that he's got to worry about and being more consistent and removing some of those just head-scratching moments.
And like you said earlier about Spencer Rattler, I believe with what he said in the press conference yesterday, I 110% agree with you saying this could be his best year as a college football quarterback.
Indeed. No, I think so. I think absolutely so that it could lead to his best season, man. We'll see. We'll see.
All right, man. You have a great day.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you, Jerry. Take care. Great stuff, as always, from Jerry Withrow. Guys, we got Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, of Saturday Football Uncensored upcoming. Our guy, P-Dawk, has picked the Gamecocks to go 9-3, 5-3 in SEC play. And Brennan M taking his shot at C. Philly says that 7-5 is the easy pick. I think it's the right pick. I don't think it's the easy pick. I think it's the right pick. I mean, again, I'll go back to this. I've been giving predictions since 2018, since when they've been documented. Never in a season has South Carolina won more games than I picked them to win. They've only underachieved my predictions. South Carolina has only underachieved my predictions every single year. I'm not saying they're going to do that this year. I'm not saying I want them to do that this year. But I'm just making the point. I mean, guys, not only am I not picking 9-3, I said the best case scenario is 8-4. Again. I said that last year also. I've mentioned it many times. I think last year's team, this year's team could prove to be better than last year's team. It could prove to be so. But this year's team has exponentially more question marks than last year's team. Guys, it's funny how folks just it's goldfish memory, it seems like. It's goldfish memory. Folks just refuse to remember. Like last year, I saw yesterday, a year ago to the date, I was posting a clip about Jaheim Bell catching a touchdown in fall camp, and everybody getting hyped, and everybody thought that, Jaheim Bell and Lloyd and we're the best in the country. Now they're not at South Carolina, so they stink. I get how it works with the Fanatics, but are you really going to argue to me there's more weapons on this year's offense than last year's? Guys, there's 50 less starts back on the offensive line. You lost your top two corners. You lost Zach Pickens. You lost Jordan Burch. You lost 6 of 8 in your front 7 when it comes to snap count. I mean, are you really going to tell me there are less question marks on this year's team? Because it's not true. It's just inaccurate. There are more question marks on this football team this year. That doesn't mean this team won't be worse or they might be better. Question marks are all over the field. Guys, we will, what's not questionable is the fact that Chris Marler is one of the best in the business. He joins us every Wednesday, and I want to say I appreciate him being flexible with his time and appreciate you guys being, rolling with the punches as well as we work through some issues in regards to Chris Marler working on his angles for the camera, right? It's full for everybody. That includes Chris Marler of Saturday Football Uncensored, Saturday Down South. Chris, appreciate you taking the time, my friend. What's going on?
Yeah, man, this has been good. I don't know, like
I
don't know
think
what
the
to
angle
do.
looks great. I think the angle looks great. I
It's
do.
like every time you post something on social media, like the angle is like this. It's just like right up in my grill.
Well,
I hate
so
it.
I'll give you an idea, Chris. The reason I'm doing that is I'm cropping the video to fit a real format.
I
So
hate
that's
it.
why. So people will come on the show, right? And they're like, they're right up here, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you realize we're gonna see this much of your face.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love it. DGD
yeah.
podcast is here. That's awesome. Anyway, yeah, man, I'm glad to be here. I apologize. I know it's been kind of crazy just with scheduling and shit like that today, but it's good to be here, man.
No, dude, you're good. Listen, it feels good to be good, man. You're all over the place, jumping on different shows, pissing off different fan bases on Twitter. It means the season's close, baby. It means the season's close. We're right around the corner. Hey, let's start, Chris, with the AP Top 25. Number of SEC teams obviously listed. Surprise, surprise. Number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs. Number 4, you've got Alabama. And then on down the list, as I look for the list to actually pull it up, Tennessee, I believe, was ranked 12th. Ole Miss at 22nd. UNC, South Carolina's week 1 opponent at 21. South Carolina on the outside looking in. They received 73 votes, but were unranked. Of course, you've got LSU. Here we go. I've got the top 25 pulled up now. LSU at number 5. Clemson at 9. I already mentioned Tennessee. Your just overall thoughts on the AP Top 25. I mean, again, Texas A&M, by the way, 23rd. That one really jumped out as well. Your overall thoughts, though, what it means. I mean, I don't want to say the AP Top 25 is meaningless because I mean it plays a major role in perception and the layout of games and kind of the playoff chase down the stretch, if you will. Anything jump out to you? Most overrated, most underrated? Did anything stand out from the AP Top 25 that came out?
First thing that I saw was the fact that there are 3 people in this country that voted for somebody other than Georgia. What are we doing? What are we doing? That is one of the dumbest things I've heard in a long time. I hate it. That being said, I think that Michigan at 2, Ohio State at 3, both those are fair. People like Ohio State's defense should be really good this year. I say this, like, when you've got dudes, and Ohio State. I haven't seen a single mock draft. Now it's early because it's August and mock drafts don't matter, whatever. But like, I haven't seen a single mock draft from April to now with less than 5 Ohio State guys on it. And usually they have at least 3 or 4 defensive players out of that, which is incredible. I think they're really good. And I know there's some people that were upset about that. Aaron Murray was saying they were too high. Listen, you're going to get so many takes about that Alabama team right now, which I love. I mean, put them at 8. Put them at 26. I don't give a shit. I can't wait. Love the fact that Tulane's in there. I love the fact that I think M's going to be better than any of us want them to be honest. I don't think that like that's a team that we're all super excited about. But I think they're going to be pretty good. I mean, they've got a lot of talent on that roster. So I think that's where I think the one that stands out to me the most is Texas at 11 was surprising. It's probably fair, but I think they're a top 10 team. I think and I know they're right on the outside, so it's not like huge, like disrespect or anything like that. But I think Texas is going to be a really, really good team this year. You and I have talked about it a bunch. Like they've returned all 5 offensive linemen, all those guys they have on offense. Those are my biggest takeaways. I will say also Tennessee is like the biggest roller coaster, I think, out of any SEC team this year, because they could be top 5 at some point. They could be out of the top 25 at some point. I think either of those things could happen with that team.
Yeah, I was going to say, Chris, you look at teams like Tennessee, Ole Miss, A&M, and we've heard the stats all week long about a number of teams. I forget the exact percentages, but, the poll is going to look much different end of season than it does right now. So who would you say? I mean, I think Tennessee's certainly a candidate that, I think Tennessee's going 9-3. I picked them second in the East. But when I look at top candidates for which of these SEC teams that are currently in the top 25, which of those are most likely to say finish the season unranked? I think Tennessee's a candidate. I think A&M could be a candidate, although I have a really hard time seeing A&M being even remotely as bad as they were last year.
Yeah,
there's no way. There's no way. I think Ole Miss, I mean, kind of who knows? I mean, I like Ole Miss offensively. Interesting year defensively for them. They'll probably take a step forward, but you never know in such a tough SEC West. I mean, it feels like Tennessee's kind of that team where you talk about volatile teams in the SEC and everybody's kind of crowning them as okay, they're the 4th best team in the SEC, but like when you really sit down, it's like they have a lot to replace, man. Like, is it fair to just say that Joe Milton just slides in there and he's gonna win the Heisman? Like,
I'm gonna get fired up, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm so sick of hearing about Joe Milton. I'm just listen, Tennessee fans, I get it's exciting that you're back and all that kind of stuff, and you had a great season. 11 wins a year ago, man. Like, on the doorsteps of making to the college football playoff. Like I know what happened in Columbia when Hendon Hooker went down, all that kind of stuff. Huge win against Alabama. Go on the road against LSU, beat the crap out of them, all that kind of shit. Okay, well, now you got to do it for a second year in a row, and we haven't seen you do that in 20 years. Like, 20 years, okay? Like, I'm still listening to Taking Back Sunday, but I was like in my Honda Accord going to first period in high school listening to Taking Back Sunday then, so it's a little bit different. Like, 20 years it's been since they've stacked good seasons, and now you're going to tell me that, okay, you lose Hendon Hooker, who statistically speaking is the greatest quarterback you have ever had in program history. I get that Peyton Manning, who he is, and get that from all up. Statistically speaking, Hendon Hooker is the best quarterback you've ever had in the system. You lose 2 receivers to the NFL. You lose a first-round draft pick at left tackle. We're going to replace all that in year 3? How? Like the defense was garbage a year ago. I'm assuming it takes a step forward. But you're telling me that, like, Joe Milton, the guy who has lost 2 starting jobs. He was the starter at Tennessee 2 years ago and lost it to Hendon Hooker. He's lost 2 starting jobs. You hope that the reason why he's good is the same, like, low-hanging fruit stuff that people said about Stetson Bennett last year. Like, he's only good because he's 25. You better hope that somehow factors in, because this offense works timing and throw the ball downfield. You can throw it a mile, but it's like in baseball. You can throw it 104, but if you can't put it on the black, then, like, what are we doing? So I'm not sold on it. Like, they have an easier schedule, I think, than Ole Miss, but those 2 teams are the best candidates to drop out of the top 3. The Tennessee thing is, like, it's outrageous to me. It shocks me that they're this, like, sold on what? We talk about Alabama not being ready for, like, this season. Why they take a step back? Because they lose a Heisman candidate and a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. They're not great at receiver. They have questions on the offensive line. They have questions on the defensive side of the ball. Does that not, like, sum up Tennessee, but with less talent and worse coaching across the board? Like, what are we talking about? Fired up.
No, listen, that's those points are all fair, and I felt the need to bring that up because right before you jumped on, we had somebody call in and just ask about, did you hear that Joe Milton, he threw a 93-yard touchdown at practice, and, like, it was 93 yards in the air, and I'm like, how many times are you throwing a 93-yard pass? Like,
secondary sucks.
Right. Well, what difference does it make? And it's like you said, I really do equate it to being a pitcher. It's like, if you throw 98, that's awesome, but if you have one pitch, you are going to get hit. Like, if you don't have a changeup, you don't have a breaking ball. So the question for Joe Milton is not, does he have a great arm? Does he have a fastball? It's, does he have a changeup? Does he have a breaking ball? Does he have a second or third pitch? And if he doesn't, he might lose another job because Nico is obviously waiting in the wings. Let's talk a little fall camp, Marler. Obviously, you're as plugged in as anybody, especially the Alabama football program. And it's funny, I was listening to McElroy and Kublik. Those guys do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
They were talking about Alabama fall camp and wide receivers are dropping passes. It's 105 degrees. Everybody's got sweaty hands, whatever. Anyways, latest on the quarterback battle. And obviously, I feel like the thing, I keep hearing out of Alabama is just this joyless murder ball thing. They want to punish people. They want to push people around. That continues to be the messaging every time Bama talks to the media. Just overall takeaways, thoughts of what's going down in Tuscaloosa right now in fall camp.
I mean, this is like a different time, I think, with Bama for me personally, okay? Because, like, I make no bones about it that I grew up an Alabama fan. And I don't think in any way that makes me be like, it doesn't affect my ability to be objective.
Everybody pulls for somebody, Marler.
Everybody pulls for somebody, right? And, like, it doesn't affect my ability to be objective or unbiased or that kind of stuff. So, but I know that going into this season, when there are more question marks and everyone is already doubting them, like, me saying positive things about them come off really care, because I saw LSU say that we're supposed to be scared of this, and it was like an out by a quarterback. And I was like, guys, this, like, Nick Saban is still the head coach. LSU has 2 wins against Alabama by 6 total points in 11 years. Like, you could say that about a lot of teams, or with less wins, right? The joyless murder ball thing, like I see this over and again, like dance the great dance league. Because I think they have a massive offensive line that takes a huge step forward in general in terms of like protection, but also like football. But they are massive physically. It's the deepest running back room they've had there probably in about like around a decade. You think about some of those classes where they had like they had Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry in the same backfield with Kenyon Drake at one point, TJ Yeldon. I don't know if it's that deep, but they are loaded at running back, and they are going to have an offense that is you're going to have a natural drop off, statistically speaking, in football this year anyway with offensive points because you have the clock's going to be running. That's just like there's going to be less time in the games, right? I think that Bama is going to – they're not putting up Sarkisian numbers with 48, 49 points a game. They'll probably be right around 38, 39 points a game. And so people look at that and say it's a step back. I don't think it's going to be a step back. Tennessee last year, you are tied with a minute and a half to go, and you are in field goal range. You need to get closer in field goal range with a struggling kicker. You throw the football 3 straight times. You got to be able to control the clock. You got to be able to like put teams away, and I think that's what they're aiming to do. And I think they're going to be able to do it, man. I think that it's going to be the defense is going to be salty and really, really good. They're a lot deeper than they were a year ago, and they're a lot deeper in certain positions. Like they lose Will Anderson, right? But I've said this over and over again. In the 3 years of recruiting classes going into this season, 247 Sports has ranked the edge rush position 3 years in 3 recruiting classes total going into this season. There's 10 total 5-stars at that position. Bama has 6 of them on their current roster. Like they are going to be loaded across the board.
I want to read this comment, by the way, from Austin Gregory. He says, since making a tweet stating that Auburn fans have unrealistic expectations, I totally understand why Marler ranks them so high in his lists of the worst fan bases on Twitter. So
I saw
somebody
Austin
feels
get
it.
into that the other day.
Somebody feels somebody feels your pain there.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do something, Marler, I have not done with a guest before. We're going to show this on the screen. There we go. I don't know if folks can really see that. So the quarterback list, I'm going to let you go through this. At number 1, of course, this is your top 10 quarterbacks in the SEC going into the season.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, KJ Jefferson. Number 2, Will Rogers. 3, Devin Leary. 4, Jaden Daniels. 5, Carson Beck from Georgia. 6, Jackson Dart. 7, Joe Milton. 8, Spencer Rattler. 9, Connor Wegman. 10, Jalen Milroe. So that is your top 10, which, by the way, did you change the Alabama pick? Because I saw on your feed, okay, you had Ty Simpson. Now it's Jalen Miller. Either way, walk us through this, man. What was the thought process with each of these selections?
All right, first and foremost, let me just set the scene on this. I was asked to make a graphic, okay? And this graphic, excuse my language, looks fucking good. Okay, it looks good. The graphic looks sharp, and that's all I want to hear, okay? Have you ever seen the movie The Rock?
I don't believe I have seen the movie The Rock. No.
Okay, there's a quote from The Rock in this movie. It's Sean Connery and Nick Cage, and he's like escaped from Alcatraz, whatever. And one of them's like his prison inmate, Sean Connery. He's got this long hair, and he gets a haircut. And there's this whole scene where all this stuff happens, and he's about to he's holding a knife to this barber's throat, and the guy's like, I just want to know if you like your haircut. That's all. That's how I feel about this stupid graphic. I just want to know if you think the graphic looks pretty.
I think it looks dope. Yeah, I think it looks really good.
It does look good.
It does.
All right, let me walk you through this because I didn't think it was that bad, but it was universally shit on from everyone. Aaron Murray said, this is awful. Jacob Hester texted me and was like, this is bad. Were you drunk? And I was like, not yet, but I will be now. KJ Jefferson at 1. You're talking about a guy that is back-to-back years, top 10 in the country in QBR. I think he's one of 4 guys that's been able to do it in the past couple of years. I think that's a no-doubter. He's been there since the late 80s. Love KJ Jefferson. Will Rogers, his numbers speak for themselves. I don't know if he is from a talent standpoint better than other of these people, but I put those 2 at number 1 and 2 because they deserve to be there, just like they deserve to have been there when we were at media days for the first and second team. They've been at each school. They're going to be 4-year starters. Will Rogers, I don't know how he still flies under the radar, but he's been great for that university and great for that program. 3, Devin Leary. People don't know Devin Leary's name as much as they should. Devin Leary is a freshman at NC State, had 35 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. There's any program in the country, including Georgia and Bama or in the SEC, would love to have those numbers from a freshman. And I get that he's playing against ACC competition, but that's still ridiculous. Jaden Daniels, I think he's too high at 4, to be honest. But I still put him in there because I think his body of work last year, 28 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Like, he was really good with the football a year ago, 17 touchdowns through the air. I don't know what that offense looks like if he's not in charge of it, because I like Nussmeier a lot, but I think that he's a very different style of play. And Daniels is pretty frail. We saw him get injured a couple times last year. When from 3 on, this is just where I think if you look up halfway through the season, this is where I think these kids are going to be. Like, I think from a talent standpoint and all this kind of stuff, that's what I would have. Carson Beck, I saw several people get upset about Carson Beck. Like, why would he have earned the right to be in this top 10? I don't know. Maybe he's a former Elite 11 quarterback, top 100 recruit, 4-star guy that has the best offensive line, the best tight end in the country, and then some of the deepest, like, skill position players, like, in the country as well. Why would he be top 5? All of the reasons I just gave you. Jackson Dart. Now, the reason I'm probably way too high on Jackson Dart is he's in year 2 of a system that he was not used to a year ago. But when you look at Lane Kiffin, going into last season, Lane Kiffin's last 10 offenses, 8 of the 10 offenses had a quarterback that had at least 3,000 yards passing and or 30 touchdowns to the air. That's really good. So I think from a number standpoint, he is going to be able to put up numbers. You got Michael Trigg back at tight end, all that kind of stuff. You get talent around you at receiver. The only 2 offenses that didn't have a quarterback put up those numbers were years he was at FAU, and he had a guy with 2,100 yards rushing and then 29 touchdowns. So that's, I mean, maybe Judkins takes the load off and he doesn't put up crazy numbers, but I think he's going to be better in year 2. Here's where it gets dicey. I had Rattler ahead of Milton, but I don't trust USC's offensive line yet. I just don't. I didn't last year. He turned the ball over a bunch because he was constantly under duress. I don't know. I think Juice Wells is the most underrated receiver in the country. I think he's going to be great. I hope Trey Knox, I know he's a little bit banged up right now, but I think Trey Knox is going to be fantastic in that offense. But the offensive line, man, like, it hasn't been something that's like been a strong point of not only the offense but the teams. That worries me. Milton will put up numbers because it's that offense. Now 9 and 10, Connor Wigman, when you look at the end of the year, I think could potentially be a top 6 guy in this league. Like, look at the dudes he's got around him. Anaya Smith, Stewart at receiver. You got a deep line. You get Bobby Petrino as your quarterback. Tell me a Bobby Petrino offense that didn't do well. I mean, especially at that position. There's a reason why Ryan Mallett was like so great at Arkansas when he didn't have nearly as much talent around him as he's going to have at A&M. And then 10, like who put it's not any. I put a hold there. You know how I feel about white lacrosse names in the quarterback room like you guys had last year. Holden Garner at all. I don't believe in that. I don't think Jay Swan's numbers were good enough throughout the entire year. I don't know who else I'm missing in this league, but like, I think that Milroe or Ty Simpson would be interchangeable at 10. And I didn't think it was that bad, but maybe I'm just being biased and defensive.
There you have it. Chris Marler's top 10 quarterbacks in the SEC. That was a lot of fun, Chris.
Hated it.
Yeah. I mean, that's so Aaron Murray said it was the worst list he had seen. Is that right?
So here's the thing. Like, I was talking to Connor about this. Connor Garrett.
What had happened was.
No. So, like, I'm not gonna. I think it's a good list. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't. But here's the thing: there's not a piece of content in college football that gets more anger in the world than a quarterback ranking list. I've run social media for SCS for like 5 years. I've seen it over and over and over again. There is nothing that will have more comments, more like clown emojis, more this is stupid. Here's what, like, a lot of fans, not all fans, but a lot of fans, especially in this time of year, you don't want like an objective, unbiased opinion. You want someone to tell you things that you agree with. And like, you think about the people who are the loudest on social media. Tennessee. Joe Milton at 7, huge problem. Well, Joe Milton hasn't started a game, right? I know Carson Beck hasn't either, but like, look at everything Carson Beck has around him. Carson Beck went 18-22 in the spring game, which it probably shouldn't count, but like, that might be the best defense he plays all year. So I don't like. Aaron Murray said this list is awful, and I joked around with him afterwards, and I was like, "What do you know, man? Like, you're only the SEC all-time leading passer." But it's like, it's a list that like we're 10 days away There's no statistical information from this season to back any of this shit up. It's a crapshoot. Maybe I'm wrong completely. I don't know. But like I know that like I remember making the graphic yesterday morning. I was like, okay, this graphic looks good. And then I have everything in place. I'm like, okay, now I got to put the names in. So that was the process. It was not like, hey, I have a feeling about these things. Let me rank them, and then I'll make a graphic around it. It was not like that, and it backfired tremendously.
Or it worked out well because it's all an engagement game and numbers game, and it's doing pretty well. So that's really all that matters.
Right, says John.
Yeah. John Edward is the fiery Gamecock in our chat. I'll just say
that's
that.
Fair.
Yeah, fair indeed. Chris Marler, Saturday Football Uncensored, Saturday Down South. Chris, we won't be speaking next week because I'll be out of town. So week 0 is upon us. I definitely want to get your thoughts, your brief thoughts on the college football season getting underway next weekend. Vanderbilt and Hawaii. Looks like there's going to be about 1,500 people there based off of the renovations. No, I'm kidding. About 28,000.
Yeah.
28,000. It's Vanderbilt, but still excited to get the season kicked off, obviously. Just your overall thoughts, brief thoughts, obviously, on the season getting underway. I know you're a gambler, too. Vandy, 18.5? That feels like a lot, but they killed them last year, man.
I'm trying not to be as into gambling as I was. I'll say that.
Chris,
all
here's the problem. We just picked up my bookie as a business partner for the season. So I'm going to be into gambling. So that's kind of where we are.
I've always been into sports betting. It's fascinating, and I've always loved it. And I want to say I'm good at it, but I'm not because I don't know when to stop. I'll just admit it. But but from a pick standpoint, we did a show last year. We'll do it again this year. I'll shameless plug for SDS on our YouTube page. It was called Big Pick. We were 70% or like 70% in those picks. The best I had a year, and I knew it was going to happen for the whole year in week 1 or week 0. Was I had Vandy Hawaii over 13.5 in the first quarter. And it was like 0-0 the whole time. I think Hawaii scored first, and then Hawaii had the ball. And there was like 15 seconds left in the quarter, and I was like, this sucks. Like a pretty substantial bet on this. It's like the first game of the year. And I was like, the only way they could even get over 13.5 points is if, I don't know, like they get a fumble or a pick six return for a touchdown in the next 15 seconds. And sure enough, Hawaii runs off like right tackle, fumbles, makes it up. What is happening right now? They 18.5 or 18. I love that. I think Vandy's gonna be better than people think. They won 5 games last year, which doesn't sound great. They beat Florida and they won 5 games. Then you look at some of the other teams. Like we talk about how great Auburn's gonna be. We talk about how great A&M's gonna be, and whatever. They all had the same amount of wins last year. So I don't think this year. I'm not saying Vandy, Auburn, A&M are the same. They put the amount of wins. I do think they beat Hawaii by 18 points. I think Notre Dame and them are the lock of the week in week 0.
And Notre Dame's got Navy in Dublin. Is that correct? Is that game?
I'm so tired of Notre Dame and their bullshit every single year. Like, I'm so tired of hearing Notre Dame talk about how we played one of the toughest schedules in the country. No, just because you played a service academy either overseas or excuse my language, but in a fucking Major League Baseball stadium, that does not make you have a difficult schedule. I'm so over, if I see Notre Dame and Air Force playing in Yankee Stadium one more time, I'm gonna lose it. I'm just gonna lose it.
Death, taxes, and Notre Dame being overrated. I mean, I think that's kind of the way things go in college football. Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, Saturday Football and Center. Chris, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Like I mentioned, of course, I'll be out of town. I know you and I have discussed. One last thing before I get you out of here. Of course, you're familiar with Alabama, Auburn. Thoughts on what Hugh Freeze is doing right now in recruiting, man? Like what they're building. Really we had the question earlier on the show. Well, they're flipping a bunch of guys from Bama and Georgia. And I say a bunch. Maybe it's only 1 or 2. But if you flip 1, it's 2. Pretty notable. Just overall thoughts on the trajectory of Auburn football with him. Do you think that it's only a matter of time before they, ascend back to the top of the West? Or do you think it's something where it'll be too much to overcome with A&M, LSU, and Bama?
Yeah. So at the time, I remember making this video last year, and I haven't updated this in late November, so I don't know if Ole Miss signed any more 5 stars. But in the history of Ole Miss football, I think they had 13. It was 13 or 8 total 5 stars. and Hugh Freeze signed like 5 or 8 of them. It was either 5 out of 8 or 8 out of 13. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, and I should have been more prepared. But like a substantial amount of their historical 5-stars in that program came from Hugh Freeze. He is going to recruit. Anybody that is upset, and I know South Carolina fans have been upset in the past about this, about, well, he's cheating or he's paying these. Yeah, okay. Well, it's not cheating anymore. Yeah. So you can't really rely on that. Okay. Like, God forbid think about what this guy could have done. His cheating at Ole Miss was, I know what he did on the cell phone, but the stuff with Laramie Tunsil was $800 for rent. Like, that's like nothing compared to some of the stuff you hear. What he's doing at Auburn now and bringing this kind of talent. They've got an Elite 11 quarterback coming in, Walter White, I think his name is, or Walker White. I don't know, something from Breaking Bad. You got 5-star receivers, Perry Thompson. It's not the fact that you're getting a bunch of flips. You got 2 flips, but you got them from your 2 biggest rivals, from Alabama and Georgia. And you got them at positions of need, which is huge. But the big thing is, and I've been saying this for Auburn, and I don't like saying it, but Saban is on his way out in some capacity. Like, if Saban, there's no chance he is going to go another decade, especially if it's Kirby winning national championship or whatever, right? Like, he's not going to go out like Bobby Bowden or Joe Paterno did. I think he's got like 3 years left tops. And Hugh Freeze coming in and getting all these recruits and turning around like what Auburn has historically been, which is a really like a top 10 to 15 national program. There's a really good opportunity for Auburn to turn the narrative and the momentum in that state and like piggybacking their success off of Saban's retirement to them regaining control of that state. And what I mean by that is, like, we saw Auburn beat Bama like 6 years in a row, in the early 2000s and kind of dominate that series from after Bear Bryant died to Saban. A good opportunity to do that, especially capitalize off of Saban potentially leaving in the next couple of years. And you talk about what that looks like for Alabama's program versus Auburn. They already have something in place and stability in place. Now, stability is not a word I thought I would ever use to describe Hugh Freeze, but you might be able to do that now. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of positivity coming from Auburn, and a lot of positive added, I think, from their fans with good reason.
Again, Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. Y'all check him out. And Chris, the next time you and I chat on these airways, we'll be breaking down and talking about week 1 of SEC football. Cannot wait, my friend. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man.
And congratulations, all the success. And again, those tuned in, be sure to check out Chris Marler. Got a big conversation, I know, upcoming with Josh Pate, with many others as well. So y'all keep up the good work, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it, brother. You have a good trip.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff from Chris Marler, one of the best in the business. Guys, we're going to jump into one final break. On the other side, we'll close out the show in style, taking your questions, your comments, your calls, and more here on this Wednesday. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. Daily Crow is also sponsored by Rhine Law Firm, LLC, principally managed by James R. Rhine Jr., located at 1350 Ashley River Road, Suite 650, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407, serving the greater Charleston area.
Marshall Dougie, ho.
All right, guys, final 11 minutes or so here in the Daily Crow, taking your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. Final 10 minutes or so here on this Wednesday, this hump day. I want to say thank you to Chris Marler for taking the time to chat, and thank him for being flexible as well. Always a pleasure, guys. Definitely check out their show. They're getting Josh Pate on, going to be really exciting. Go check out what he's got to say. Austin War says, how's the golf game been this year for you, other than being hot as hell? You know, Austin, I haven't played a ton of golf. It's wild, man. I would say from late December until like early April, I was playing a ton of golf, tons of golf. And I was literally hitting balls like 3-4 times a week. And once we got into summer, I don't know, that just slowed down. And now that we're in a football season, man, it's just, you're limited on time, and golf takes up so much time. And I really just don't have all that time to give away. So haven't played a ton of golf, but last time I played pretty decent, actually. Played pretty decent. So our guy P-Dog in the Big Cock Club Discord talking about his predictions. He says his thing is people are complaining about not having us in the top 25, then pick us to go 7-5. And I'll tell you this, and also, too, people are saying the lazy pick 7-5. Everybody's picking 7-5. Guys, I haven't seen a Gamecock pick less than 9-3 or 8-4. Point them out to me. Who's picking 7-5 in Gamecock Nation outside of us? Who in Gamecock Nation has even given predictions? Every other even remotely related to Gamecock person I've seen has picked 9-3, 8-4 at worst. I've seen nobody go worse than 8-4. So the whole everybody's picking 7-5. I mean, I guess maybe if you're talking like from a national scope, from a unbiased scope, which is where I would label myself more so with the national scope, then yeah, I'm picking 7-5. Brad Crawford's picking 7-5. What other predictions are you talking about? Because again, all the other Gamecock folks I've seen, 9-3, 9-3, 9-3, 9-3. Everybody else. And I won't complain about South Carolina not being in the preseason top 25. I wouldn't put him in my preseason top 25 either. Not with all the questions. I wouldn't put him there. So you'll get no argument from me. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Nick.
Nick, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, Chris. How about yourself, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I appreciate you asking. What's going on?
Not much. Yesterday, I didn't get a chance to call in. I was kind of listening to your show and was tied up at work and heard you giving some hot takes and stuff about, the upcoming season with certain players and stuff. And it was pretty cool, kind of fun, something different. I was calling to give you a few hot takes of what I think, a couple hot takes.
Yeah, man, fire away.
My first one would be the Kerryon Joyner shows up and he is that dude. And I think he's going to, 1,000 yards or more for the Kerryon Joyner and 10+ touchdowns, whether it's receiving or rushing, maybe passing. Who knows? I think Nicholas Harbor, 750 or more receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. I think, it'd be pretty cool, but Spencer Rattler, 4,500 yards and a Heisman candidate this year.
Okay.
So that's just a few off the top of my head. Just off the hip, and maybe, Beamer hits 10 wins and surpasses, all Muschamp want to talk about is they have more wins than anybody in 3 seasons. And I'd love for Beamer to put that to a hush. Because I don't want Muschamp to have no kind of leg up on nobody in this organization because he really don't deserve it in my book.
I would say the most likely of the 3 bold predictions you have, if just in my opinion, I think the most likely is the Nick Harbor 750 and what'd you say, 5 touchdowns, I think, for Nick Harbor?
5 touchdowns. Yep.
I think that could happen. I'm not necessarily expecting it, but I think Nick Harbor could be a breakout player for South Carolina for sure and emerge as wide receiver 2. But hey, man, I got my fingers crossed that all 3 of them happen. South Carolina's going to have a hell of a season if they all happen. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd like to see. I don't know what DJ Braswell. I know he didn't really come in until what, summertime maybe. I'd like to see him at least give us, a glimpse of hope for the running back room. I'm not saying have more rushing yards than the Kerryon Joyner, but when Joyner comes out the game, or say Joyner goes down with an injury, just be productive. Don't, if you get a ball thrown to you out the backfield, don't drop it if you're wide open. Or if you get to run, finish the run physical. Don't try to avoid the contact. Take somebody down with you. Give us some promise and some hope. But I think the Kerryon Joyner, man, you look at his size. His body, he's what, 23, 24 years old, trying to get tackled by 19, 20-year-olds. I think, his body size and the maturity size is probably going to play a big benefit to him in the running game this year, I believe.
Yeah, I think physically he is as ready as he ever could be to take over the running back position. He's got the size, no doubt. So it'll come down to, vision and other things that make you a great running back. And we'll see if he's got that. He also just needs help from that offensive line. But I think he's primed to have his best season ever in Garnet Black, man. I really do.
Yeah, I do too, man. I do too. I hope hopefully we'll keep trending up. I can see a best case scenario, my book's 9-3, worst case 7-5 type thing. I think we need a couple more years till we, get some depth on the defensive line and at the wide receiver room. And, I think quarterback room, I think Lenore Sellers, I'm right down the road from where he was raised at right here in Florence. So, he's a dude, man. They just need to be patient with him, and fans don't need, if he goes in there and throws a couple interceptions, ain't the end of the world.
Indeed. I'm excited for the year, man. Really, really pumped.
I appreciate it, Chris. Have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your vacation, man.
Hey, Nick, I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for the call. Great stuff. Great stuff from Nick. Floor 7-5, ceiling 9-3. And I hope that every single one of his bold predictions comes true, because if it does, South Carolina's probably going to score 50 points per game. I mean, really, truly. Humbucker 75. Chris, what are your honest thoughts on what the future holds for Luke Doty? Honest thoughts on Luke Doty's future. Reserve quarterback. Reserve quarterback and nothing more. Nothing more, nothing less. Great Gamecock. Great representative of USC. Not an impact player on the football field. QB2, QB3, something of that nature. I don't think that Luke Doty's going anywhere, but I don't see him making an impact for South Carolina in any way. I don't care if it's quarterback, receiver, whatever. I just don't see it. So I hope I'm wrong. You know, we'd love to see Luke Doty get some, get some play, but Mantis says if the tight ends get involved, going to instantly open it up for the wide receivers not named Juice Wells. Yeah, and I think the tight ends, Mantis, they should get involved with Trey Knox, Joshua Simon, Elksness, Reed McKeeska, amongst a host of others. So the tight ends absolutely should be involved this season. Let's see. Spur Daddy says, one thing you never do is bet against Nick Saban. That's what people are doing, so just sit back and watch. I say Bama wins the national title this year. Really? Justin Langford, yeah, I know we had some of the issues with Chris Marler. I think that was his internet. I don't think that was an us thing. Spur Daddy says, the Tennessee man will tell you they're winning the Natty after they lost their Heisman candidate quarterback and their two best receivers. You're replacing that quarterback with one that has no accuracy. Spur Daddy, they keep saying Texas is back. My question, when are y'all coming back? Dwayne Wicker, Tennessee will be an 8-4 team this year. I mean, I've still got them 9-3. I'm giving them benefit of the doubt for sure. I'm giving Josh Heupel benefit of the doubt, admittedly, that offensive system is going to continue to work no matter who's at quarterback. I think it's a quarterback-friendly system. I think it's a system that, quarterbacks can flourish in. So I don't think their offense is going to be as good as it was last year. I don't. I don't think Tennessee's offense is going to be as good as it was last year. And I don't think they're going to be as good as they were. But I don't think they take some major step back. So, anyways, guys, hey, we've hit the end of the show. What a time. What a time. Guys, appreciate you all tuning in. I want to say thank you again to Chris Marler. Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. Also, all of you for tuning in, engaging, calling in, being interactive during the show. And appreciate you guys, man, rolling with the punches. Obviously, we changed the show 9 to noon today instead of the normal noon to 3. Thank y'all so much for being flexible, for rolling with the punches, for rocking with us, and being here through the morning. Mantis, final thing, he says, Drake May, the number 5 player in the country, according to ESPN. Hope our defense is ready. I mean, listen, Mantis, he's a good one. And I'm excited to talk during game week, break this thing down, break down the matchups, if you will. I'm excited to talk about this game, but Drake May is legit. In my mind, he's a legitimate dude. He's a stud. He's a big-time, next-level player. And South Carolina, certainly, it will be a great challenge in week 1 of the college football season. Guys, that being said, that's going to do it for us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we drop new video content, when we go live as well. And also, of course, the podcast at the Spurs Up Show is where you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Check us out there as the pod drops daily, 5 p.m. Eastern, across all of those different platforms. Guys, that's going to do it for me. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.